I'll change that in a moment.
Okay, so I call this meeting to order of the Board of Elections. We not only have a quorum present, we have the entire membership present. Thank you all for being here. Before we get to the agenda, we have to convene the Board of Canvassers from the 2022 election, which would be Ami, Diane, Alex, and me to deal with an untimely ballot, or I don't know if it's one or more. Boris, I turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Board. Boris Brajkovic, Election Director. We have received 2 untimely ballots for 2022 general elections. They were received on September 26th in our office. Both of these ballots are domestic ones. Voters are registered in Silver Spring and Bethesda. None of the ballots has a signature assigned next to, none of the ballots has a date assigned to the signature on the envelope. So if Board of Canvassers,
do they have postmarks, Boris?
one of them has it. It's September 21st, 2023.
Boy.
Well, I move we reject them as being untimely.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, before we vote, I just want to put as a point of discussion, Boris, I would like someone to reach out to the postmaster at that location and try and figure out if they just found these ballots or kind of what the story is. Because if it has a postmark from that late, we need to know whether it was the voter who sent it in September or whether it sat in the post office until September. If it was the voter, it's on them. If it's the post office, obviously we want to fix that.
Okay, noted.
So
And
thank
can you restate? I hope I may have confused myself. Your comment about the signature?
So both of them are signed.
Oh, okay, got it.
There's no signature next.
There's no date. There's no date next.
Yeah,
to
sorry.
the
There's no
signature.
date next to the signature.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So we don't know whether they signed it recently or whether they signed it a long time ago. We don't know whether they mailed it recently or mailed it a long time ago. What we do know is that that one of them has a postmark that is from September of 2023, and I gather the other one does not have a postmark, Boris?
No, doesn't have it.
Okay.
And just for clarification purposes, in general, is it requested or required that one sign it and date it?
You're supposed to sign and date it.
Okay,
So,
I
on the
just
back,
wanted
there's
that.
The date is actually the fallback if there is no postmark under the statute.
Okay, thank you.
All right, but to be clear, if there's no date, the ballot is still valid.
If it's postmarked, yeah, on or before election day.
Right, or if it's received on or before election day.
Correct.
We can also include it. But in other words, a failure to put, if I vote for let's use the upcoming primary as an example. If I vote in the middle of April by mail and I send it in and we get it in April and the election is, May 14th, and I don't date my signature, we will count that ballot.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will get counted even if it doesn't have a postmark because we have it.
Right.
Right. I have a question. Were both of those through the same post office, Boris?
I wouldn't know that. I have to check that.
Well, without a postmark, it'll be very hard to know whether it
yeah,
came
but
from
is the one with the postmark also the one with the signature?
There's none of them has a signature. Both of them have signatures, but none of them has date next to the signature.
Okay.
Okay, that was the simple part of the meeting, supposedly. Anybody else with questions about the Board of Canvassers before we move on?
Call the vote.
I think we had the vote.
No, we didn't.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
You had a motion and a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. All those in favor of the motion to declare these ballots as untimely and not accept them, please raise your hands. That's everybody. Okay, very good. 4-0. The ballots are untimely. Boris, thank you for bringing those to our attention. For the benefit of our observers, it may sound strange to you that in October of 2023, we are still getting ballots from a year ago, essentially, but it is not unheard of, as those of us who've been on the board for a bit can tell you. we get ballots at all different times. So we are not by law allowed to accept those ballots because there's not only a deadline for when they're postmarked, there's a deadline for when they are received. The deadline for when they are received is 10 days after Election Day, and we are far beyond that deadline. So so regardless if it had been postmarked by Election Day and received in September of 2023, we still would not have been able to accept that ballot. Okay, so let's move back to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, I realize I'm going out of order because I didn't realize that I get to talk before we have additions and corrections to the agenda. So let me go back to my comments. I just have a few brief comments for now. The first thing I wanted to say is that we said a number of times in our meeting last month that we were going to discuss our social media policy at our meeting this month. That is no longer the case. We will be discussing the social media policy at our meeting next month. So I just wanted to let people know in case anybody is here specifically for that purpose, that will be next month rather than this month. The second thing I wanted to say is that I'm appointing Margie Delao and Alex Vincent to be on the board's budget committee. I want to thank both of them for being willing and able to serve in that capacity. It's obviously very important to us because the budget affects literally everything that we do. And then I also wanted to mention on the subject of, the board voted to recommend that we go to 14 early voting sites, the same locations, although not necessarily the same rooms as we did in 2022. That recommendation has been transmitted to the county executive and the county council. We've been told directly by Dale Tibbetts of the county executive staff that the county executive approves. And it has not yet been scheduled for discussion by the county council. I've been in touch with various different people, both in the executive staff and in the council staff, and we will continue to push to get a decision. Thus far, I have not heard of anybody who disagrees with that decision, but it is a matter of getting it on their agenda and getting something official in writing that we can then share with the state board so that they can act upon those 14 sites. And then I'm going to save for our outreach discussion. There were a number of different outreach events that board members participated in, but rather than discussing them now, I'll save those for that part of the agenda. Any questions about anything that I've said thus far? Okay, let's go to public comment. I may go a little out of order here. I'd like to start the public comment with Michael Fletcher. I don't know if he was the first person to sign up. We do have more than one public commenter today. And I'm going to allow Mr. Fletcher, based on his frequent flyer points, to go first. But obviously, I will also point out that public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and we do have a full agenda today. So is Mr. Fletcher being asked to be promoted, and is he being promoted?
Yes, it just
You're on.
takes a minute.
Can you?
Okay.
There he is. Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Fletcher.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We'd love to see you too, if you are comfortable with that.
No problem. Well, maybe the machine won't let me do it. Okay, hold on a second.
There you are.
Okay,
Okay, welcome. Great to see you again.
good afternoon.
Okay, please proceed.
All right, good afternoon to you all. My name is Michael Fletcher. I live in Durwood, and I have the following concerns regarding the election process in Montgomery County. In May of this year, I gave your election director information from the National Change of Address database that showed that 27,813 people were on the county registration list, although they had moved out of Maryland. During subsequent discussions of that list, I stated that these moves had all occurred prior to January 2023. I have since reviewed the NCOA data and determined that over 6,000 of these registrants had moved during calendar years 2018 and 2019. There was sufficient time between December 2019 and the 90-day period prior to the 2020 general election to conduct the NVRA notification process and designate these people as inactive. Since mid-2020, 2 federal election cycles have occurred. Therefore, it appears that these registrants should have been removed from the registration list in early 2023. The fact that they are still on the registration list appears to illuminate a weakness in the list maintenance process. My second concern deals with blank ballots. I have attached an excerpt from an EL45A election summary with group detail report showing that 20,098 blank ballots were cast in the 2022 general election in Montgomery County. I find it hard to believe that 1,878 voters who were motivated to vote early, 8,676 voters who went to the polls on election day, 8,159 voters who requested mail-in ballots, and 1,385 voters who took the time to sit with an election judge to vote a provisional ballot. All these people would deign to cast ballots without voting for any candidates or issues. It defies logic. This concern could easily be investigated by hand counting the ballots from a few tabulators and comparing the results to the blank ballot count registered by the machines. By the way, there were 41,680 blank ballots cast in Montgomery County in the 2020 general election. That's the extent of my comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fletcher, and thank you for staying within the requisite time. Boris, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I would like to provide a response to Mr. Fletcher's comments and thank him for keeping me busy over the weekend. Let me start with the first with 27,000 voters that were on the file that you provided to us. I took 500 records, pulled out those that NCOA show change of address from 2018, 2019, and looked in all of them that appeared in that subset. As I said, didn't have time to go over more records over the weekend, but that was a start. Anyone who appeared in 2018 or 2019 on the NCOA change of address, there are multiple reasons why they are still on our active list in Montgomery County. One of them is that they were actually inactivated in 2018, 19, or 2020, but then they submitted a voter update, submitted a request to vote by mail, or voted in person. And that is the fact for a number of those records that I checked last night. The second thing is that some of them were not inactivated because they returned the confirmation card that we sent out as a part of an NVRA process and confirmed with their signature that this is their residential address, confirming in many instances that NCOA address that you have on your list is their mailing address. For many voters that appeared on that list and you have them on NCOA list, that address matches their mailing address, not residential address. Some of those are students. I would say that some of them are our military because I see the subsequent move to different bases out of the state in Germany and South Korea. So there are different reasons why those voters are active. And they are active because they undertook certain action to stay in inactive status, whether it's submitting an update, whether it's requesting to vote by mail, whether it's voting in person.
Let me, Boris, let me stop you right there for a minute, because I think you said an active status, and it could have been heard by some people as inactive status, which of course is the opposite. So let me just make sure that I understand what you just said. So some of the voters essentially activated themselves by voting in some fashion after the change of address and then giving us their address at that point.
That's correct.
And then others of the voters returned a card to us or somehow communicated with us that they had changed their mailing address, but that their residential address had not changed. It is in Maryland, you must have a residential address for your voting. You cannot vote based on a mailing address. That is, I mean, that's what the law says.
That's correct.
Okay,
So
thank you.
as I said, I started looking, but those records that I went through, Mr. Fletcher, they all fall in one of these categories. So nothing there that would cause any suspicion. The number is might sound big, but if you put it in comparison with the total number of voters in Montgomery County, it's not. Another issue is that Montgomery County population tends to move a lot, whether for studying, for the second home, or for the longer absence from their residential address. When it comes to the second question and the number of blank ballots that you pointed out based on the report received from us, may I just draw your attention to the fact that in 2022 general elections, we had a ballot with 6 pages spread over 3 cards. So in this particular case, the issue is not a problematic number. The issue is unfortunate terminology that is being used. When you when you complete your ballot, if you vote every race on the first 2 cards and don't vote a single race on a 3rd card, that will be recorded as a blank ballot. Even though the races on the first 2 cards will be counted, the system, as I said, unfortunately, terminology is not proper. It should say blank cards, but it says blank ballots. So 20,000 number that you are referring to is 20,000 blank cards that were scanned as part of someone's ballot. If I may ask you to, if you look at the state board website and look at the number of ballots that were cast and received in the total race for the governor, you will see that that number in some instances is 50, 60, or 80,000 more than some races that appear on card 2 and especially on card 3. Card 3 were only questions. So it's not blank ballots as a whole. It's a blank card within a ballot. And you will understand that for some people, governor race draws more attention and more effort to vote than, I don't want to point out any other races, but there were quite few races that where candidates were running unopposed. And my understanding, looking at the numbers at the state board website, is that those questions that were at the end of the ballot did not really enjoy so much interest from the voters as the top of the ballot was.
Boris, is the terminology about blank ballots, is that ours or is that the state's?
That's part of the system. That's why how it appears on the report that Mr. Fletcher has.
Is
So
there
it is
any
clear.
way to change that to make it more precise?
We could talk to the state about that, but that's literally the explanation. It's a number of cards, not the
Okay.
ballots itself.
Because
If I may just draw attention to Mr. Fletcher, when we did our manual audit, Mr. Fletcher, you will recall that even we had to tabulate, if I recall properly, the governor's race. Even then, we had a blank ballots, people who skipped to vote for the governor at all.
I thought those were called undervotes if they voted some of the cards, but not all of the cards.
So undervote. So if you recall, there are a number of races where you were allowed to pick more than one candidate, right? If you says vote 2, you vote 1, you didn't vote maximum. If you leave everything blank, you didn't vote the whole race. If you leave everything blank on a card, every single race, that's a blank card. And one card can contain, I failed to count, I apologize for that, but I would say like 5 to 10 races, depending. The questions had less, the third card had less, but the other cards, I would say like 5 to 10 races on it.
Mr. Fletcher, did you attend the canvas this last election cycle?
Yes, briefly I did.
Okay, well, you probably recalled a bunch of canvas teams raising their hand with a little thing saying they had a question, and we had people running, going ahead back and forth. And that was actually to get cards because there were voters that did not return all 3 pages of the ballot. So a blank card has to be inserted to go ahead and make the audit, the reconciliation of the numbers work. And I suspect the board members recall logging in many steps, actually going back and getting those blank cards so that you'd have a set of 3 for each voter.
Daniel and then Alex.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Boris, the question I have is, does this only apply to those who are voting with paper ballots, or would this would not impact those who are voting with the electronic voting devices?
I have to look because BMD ballot comes on a 1 page, but I have to look at the barcode, how it picks up from it. So a very good question. I have to look back at that one.
Hard to imagine.
Thank you. Thank you for
the
the
ballot
answer.
can be blank. But I suppose that would be a good thing to know. That would be a problem with the BMD if it was. Thank you for that good question, Daniel. Alex.
Thank you.
Boris, did you say you had examined about 500? Was that what I heard?
Yeah, so not all 500 of them were from 2018 and 2019. So I took a 500 and filtered those that were from 2018 and 2019 and started looking there. As I said, this data set has 6,000 records, and please bear with me. There's only so much I can squeeze in one day.
No, understood. So would it be true to say, based on your findings then, that because all of these came from the national change of address system, so would it be true to say that these people who remained active because they updated their records, that they didn't actually move out in the sense of changing their residence, but they just changed their mailing address?
That's correct. So I'll be honest with the board. I expect my son to appear on that NCOA list sooner or later because he moved to New York for studies, but his still residential address is here. So anytime he starts receiving mail, and we all know Amazon delivers everywhere, that address will be picked up sooner or later, and it will show him as a potential voter to be inactivated in Montgomery County. On the light side, I have to say that sometimes I do send something under my name to his address, so I hope I don't get inactivated as well. But that's a different story.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Fletcher? All right, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. We appreciate your appearing.
Thank you,
Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Mr. President.
Okay, Lisa, who do you have next on your list?
Patrick Sasu.
Okay, Mr. Sasu.
Jerry, can you promote Mr. Sasu? Here he is.
There he is.
Hello,
Hello, Mr. Sasu.
hello,
If you're comfortable, if you could turn on your camera, that would be great.
yes. Whoa,
Okay, there you are.
Well,
Welcome,
he said.
and please proceed. As I told Mr. Fletcher, 3-minute limit.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, all, and thank you for having me. My name is Patrick Sassu Jr., and right now I'm a junior at the University of Maryland, taking courses at the universities at Shady Grove. This summer, I graduated from Montgomery College with my associate's degree. And while I was a student at Montgomery College, I was an MC Votes ambassador. During my time, I learned Montgomery College holds a very diverse student body, and this also means that student schedules are very unique. In my own experience, voting last year reflected difficulties for students depending on public transportation. So I would leave my home around 6 a.m. to go to my class, which was a 90-minute commute. Then from class to my internship, it was also a 90-minute commute again. Then finally, after a 2-hour commute, by 7 o'clock p.m., I was home. Then I had time to go and vote because I had a polling station right next to my house. And as a student who relies on public transportation, with just one internship, this was a lot to handle. And I can't imagine the process it will be for somebody with children who uses public transportation and has classes, or somebody working a full-time job during the day and then has classes during the night. So there is early voting, and I'm well aware of that, and we need to promote that more. But the reality is that many people do not place their vote until the last day. The way to accommodate college students is to allow ballot boxes to be held at Montgomery College. A quick drop-off box before classes or after classes would allow students to be more efficient and effective with their time. Better accessibility allows for more diverse and inclusive voting participation. And this is something I truly believe is within reach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sasu. I do have a question or two for you, but I'm going to first ask if there's anyone else who has questions for him. Okay, Mr. Sasu, could you tell us which of the campuses you have attended classes at among Tacoma Park, Rockville, and Germantown?
I've attended classes at the Germantown campus and the Rockville campus.
Okay. And are you familiar with the locations that the college is considering putting the drop boxes there?
No, but we do have a college representative here. that
Okay.
can answer.
Yeah. We will get to that person, and I just wanted to check on that.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent.
Mr. Sasu, would you be able to tell us, do you live close to a public high school in Montgomery County or a community recreation center by any chance?
So in the county, I live in Clarksburg, and I'm about 10 minutes away from Clarksburg High School.
10 minutes by what mode of transportation?
Walking.
Oh, okay.
Thank
David, Daniel has his hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. I apologize, Daniel. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Sasu, thank you so much for coming and telling your story, because yours is not only unique. I remember when I was also at Montgomery College and working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to leave early in the morning, and
Mhm.
within the schedule, obviously, the fact that you're even considering to vote, it's a big plus. Can you give us an idea how many students do you think within your campus or within even your group will benefit from your advocacy today?
Definitely, when I was able to, as I was an MC Votes ambassador, when I was able to represent MC Votes and speak to the student body, I noticed that a lot of students were actually very engaged and willing to, one, register to vote and actually participate in voting. But a lot of them, their schedules were much more hectic than my own. And on the example I gave for myself, that morning, I would have planned to go and vote, but I had to leave home earlier before polling stations were even open to get to my class that I had at 8 a.m. For a lot of students, I have peers who are working multiple jobs or have multiple internships, or that are even my age and have children that they have to take care of. And their time is much more limited than my own. And I've seen how they've had to struggle even accommodate for their own classes. So this is something that I definitely feel as if for a lot of the students at Montgomery College across all 3 campuses will really benefit them and allow them to also made their voice heard while also keeping their time efficient.
I'm delighted that you're here and telling your story. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Margie.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sasu, for joining us today. My cousin just graduated from Montgomery College and he's now at University of Maryland. So
Oh.
I have two specific questions, actually. There was something that you said that struck me. Do you think, so my first question, and we can just answer, I guess, both of them after I go through them, is that do you think there are other students who also have long commutes to their campus, especially those who depend on public transportation? And then my second question is going to be something that struck me, and as I was helping my cousin with picking classes, is that sometimes your classes are on multiple campuses across Montgomery County. So is that something else you see, like students having to deal with, in just a regular day on top of maybe having a long commute? Is it typical to have classes in like various other campuses in Montgomery County, like if you're a Montgomery College student?
Well, first, thank you for these questions. And also thank you for having me and asking these questions. I think definitely for students who are using public transportation, their commute times can vary for usually around 1 hour to get to classes, but up to 3 hours. I'm also a part of an entrepreneurship program, and people who were a part of that program to come to that class, the class was held at the Germantown campus. These people will be coming from the Tacoma Cart campus. We'll have to, one, take a train to get to the campus. Then we'll have to take the shuttle bus, and then we'll have to take the public bus. And that would last them about a 3-hour transit to get to and then from class. And that was a lot for them just to make it to a class. I also had another peer where I took classes with him at the Broadfield campus. At around 12 o'clock, he would have to leave to get to a class at 12:30 on the Germantown campus. But lucky for him, he was able to drive and he had a car and a vehicle available to him. But for a lot of us students, I know for me personally, during my first year at Montgomery College, I was between the Germantown and Broadfield campus on a day-to-day basis. It was only because I've been blessed to have either my parents come and take me to classes, and when they couldn't, I would just have to use a Lyft and pay it out of my own pocket. But that's definitely another issue as well that we see often.
Thank you. Kina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Sasu, for joining us today and sharing your advocacy. One of the questions I have is about the club first, and then also separately about your own personal observations. So to my understanding, the club or the organization that you are part of is a nonpartisan organization. It services the community of students rather than any one particular party. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Regarding representation of the different parties within your campus, do you have or is there currently plans to have community engagements so that all members of different parties are well represented and have the information they need to know about these boxes if they are in fact going to be erected on different campuses?
That question I would definitely redirect towards my representative who's also here with me. And I don't want to answer that question quite yet.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. And then finally, in your personal observations, is there sufficient representation of all political parties on the different campuses, maybe more particular the campus that you're most a part of or most on, so that they have the information they need to share with the students regarding having these new boxes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sasu? Okay, we really appreciate your coming to our meeting today. Thank you so much for sharing your views and for being interested in the democratic process. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Next, we have Chanel Reed Garrett.
Okay. We will hear from Ms. Garrett.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and
Mhm.
welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Chanel Reed Garrett, and I'm the Service Learning Coordinator and member of the MC Votes Committee at the Montgomery College Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony regarding adding ballot boxes to our 3 main campuses. The ballot boxes would increase voter participation because they remove 2 potential barriers for students and staff. Anyone with transportation challenges doesn't have to worry about trying to get to school and trying to vote. Many in our community rely on public transportation. Therefore, ballot boxes on campus are a convenience and will make it easier to vote. We can also send direct messages to students utilizing all of our communication ports regarding the ballot boxes. We also have students and staff who are hesitant to miss work or school. The ballot boxes on our campus can also remove that barrier. Our goal is to ensure that our community has as many options as possible to be able to cast their vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. I gather that you are the representative of Montgomery College who is here today. You're not a student.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Are there any questions for Ms. Garrett? Keena.
Hi, Ms. Garrett. Thank you very much for joining us today. As I asked your student representative regarding political representation on the campus, is there sufficient support of the different organizations on campus representing different political organizations that they have what they need to inform, if you want to call them their constituents, if you will, about the potential adding of these new boxes?
Yes, the information will go out through all of our communication modes, working directly with our Office of Communications. So it will be to all of our campuses, any of our extension centers. So any groups and some of community will get information about those boxes. The MC Votes Committee is not a student group. It is a constituency of faculty, staff, and students that support our voting initiatives on campus and in the community. And we work with a number of nonpartisan organizations, for example, the League of Women Voters. We've also had the Montgomery County Board of Elections on our campus several times. In fact, they're going to be there tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keena. Before we go on, I do see that we have a hand raised among our attendees from Mark Pace, who I understand is the transportation manager at Montgomery College. And if we could promote him, perhaps he would, I don't know if he has other comments to make or he's just available to answer questions, but I do know, let me clarify for you. I'm not saying that Ms. Garrett should leave. I'm saying that Mr. Pace should join. We really should allow both of them to answer our questions. If that would be possible, Jerry, thank you. Mr. Pace, welcome. Did you have something you wanted to add, or are you just here to answer questions?
Well, I basically to answer questions. I mean, I can answer a few that had already been asked of the previous young man. He the one about multiple campuses. We have about 20% of our students that take classes at more than one campus, credit students. And last year we had around 17,500 students. We're just under 18,000 this semester. So I don't have all the numbers yet on class projections. I'm waiting for that report as to what it is this year. But historically, over the last several years, minus the COVID years, have been around 20% on multiple campuses. And then our most recent survey that was done as part of our facilities master plan for 2023 in the spring, they did a survey and it was listed that at Tacoma and Germantown, 46% of our students drove and 33% at Tacoma Park drove. And we issued about 33% part of our students ordered parking permits last year. That's down from what it historically had been in the 55 to 60% range from 2019 and back. So with all the other
can we work
modes-
backwards, Mr. Pace, for just a minute? What are you saying is the percentage of students at Montgomery College who don't use cars?
that don't use cars, we're typically in the Germantown runs in the 65 to 70% range. The last survey that was questioned was 67%. 10 years ago, it was 66%. Rockville is 54% and Germantown's 54%. That's a combination of public transportation, being dropped off, walking, bike, anything really other than driving in an automobile or being a passenger with another student. Those we count as auto transports, and the rest are all the other modes. Generally are over 50%. We do run a campus to campus shuttle that if a student arrives at one campus, they can get a direct access to another campus. And that was done in part because of the numbers that we had on multiple campuses. Because the East County around Tacoma Park is served better by Metro than it is by Ride-On, where the other two campuses are served very well with Ride-On, and our students can use Ride-On at no additional cost. It's part of their student fees. So that's basically just the numbers, and it's just credit students that I'm talking about. It doesn't include the non-credit.
Can you ask?
Okay, other questions for Mr. Pace? Mr. Pace, I gather you are not the person to ask about the placement of drop boxes. You are the transportation person, right?
I am the transportation person, but
Okay,
I would think that that the best place would be around our Raptor Central Welcome Center. Because
well, which campus are you talking about now?
I'm talking about every one of them. They all three have a welcome center. Tacoma Park and Rockville have them in the Student Services Building.
Okay,
We don't have what's titled a Student Services Building at Germantown yet. It's on the books. But there is a Raptor Central Welcome Center in the Student Advising Building. And Public Safety then is in each of those buildings as well. Their offices are in each of the buildings where the Raptor Central Welcome Centers are located.
and what does that mean to be the Raptor Center Welcome?
Well, it's a place where students can go. They can go get registration help for the next semester. You can schedule advising appointments. If somebody comes to campus without a parking permit, they can get a visitor parking permit. So it's designed to sort of be a one-stop shop for students when they're in the registration process or have questions.
Okay, thank you. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. So the centers that you're describing, are they easily accessible to the public or just students and staff? And how are they secluded from other heavily trafficked buildings around the campus, or are these the most frequently accessed building by students?
Yeah, they would all three be heavily accessed by students.
Now, Daniel, I will say that we do have maps of where the drop boxes are proposed by the college. I will say that I informed the representatives of the college that we couldn't consider any location that did not have 24/7 video surveillance. And I think that might be, in some instances, a limiting factor. Now, Ms. Garrett, are you the person to talk to about the location of the drop boxes? Because I also see that there's an Adam Reed with his hand up. Is he with Montgomery College as well?
Yes, Adam Reed is the Director of Public Safety.
Oh, excellent. Can we get him to join as well, please? And then I'm going to call on Alex. Alex, you are on mute.
I just had a question, Mr. President, for Kina. I wanted to make sure I understood her question. I thought Kina, you were asking whether Ms. Garrett, whether political parties were adequately represented on campus, but I might have misheard that. Is that what you wanted to know from her?
Yes, but by way of information, do they have the access that they need in order to disseminate that regarding the boxes if and when they become available?
Okay, I wasn't sure she had said anything about whether, like, the Republican Party has representation on campus, the extent to which the Democratic Party is.
I don't think that's a relevant question for us personally. I mean, we can discuss it if you'd like. I think the relevant question is whether voters of all affiliations have access to vote.
Well, that's how I interpreted what Kina was asking. That's all I'm trying to clarify.
Okay, Kina, do you want to explain? Is that what you were asking?
Thank you for asking for clarification. It was regarding their access to the information about boxes and making sure people who identify with the political parties would get that information.
Okay, but we don't know who is identified with which political parties, and I'm pretty sure that we're not going to make efforts to distinguish between Democrats, Republicans, and independent voters, and I'm guessing Montgomery College may not as well. Ms. Garrett, did you want to comment? We cannot hear you at the moment. You don't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you. And of course, we have no chat box in these meetings.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I'm having some technical issues. But to answer your question, we would not, as an institution, be focused on any specific political organizations or parties. We market whatever we have is going to be marketed to our full community. If an organization like would contact us and ask us for information about polling stations, other things, that's public information that we would share. And currently, we do have student groups on all of our campuses. And if there is a student group who leans to one political party or another, that group would have, again, open access to information about the campus.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, thank you for joining us. First of all, thank you to the college for having good representation today to answer our questions. We very much appreciate that. Mr. Reed, since you are the security expert, can you tell us about the camera coverage and how that relates to the various locations that were suggested to us? There was one location suggested in Germantown. There was one location suggested in Rockville. There were actually 3 different options that were suggested in the Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus. And I was wondering if you have any insight into that.
Sure. Thank you, David. Is everybody able to hear me also? Perfect. Great. I have, if anybody would like to see, I also have screen grabs of what shows that coverage. So sometimes a picture paints 1,000 words, right?
That would be great, as long as we've given you the ability to share your screen, which hopefully we have.
Let's see.
Why don't you try it and see?
Oh yeah, I sure do. Great. All right. So
Okay.
first I'm going to show you what we have for Germantown. Now, it's also important to note that we are currently in the expansion process of adding more cameras to the Germantown campus. So what we're looking at here is the front of the BE building, which is one of the which is the area we've identified for Germantown. So this roadway here has a horseshoe loop that folks can pull in, easily get out and drop off their ballot. So if we had the box somewhere in this general area, it would be covered. But right below this camera, there's a fascia, which would be the entryway into the building, the main entryway. And I would think that probably putting the box down there would be a little bit better.
Do you have a camera on that area?
So we do. It's inside the vestibule, so it doesn't catch the outside, but we have one slated to go outside. So basically right below here, it's not up yet, but it will be up. So by the time we're looking to do this, which I believe is the spring, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it would have to be, it would have to be ready to, well, we have to get approval long before the spring.
Yes.
So and you know, but in terms of having it available, early voting would be, I'm sorry, mail-in balloting would be starting, I believe, right around the start of April.
Yes, we will have that camera up and running by April. So again, it would be right below this line that you see, and it would hit the basically the backside of these vehicles and the entryway to the building, which is a set of 4 doors. So there's one on the other side in the interior part, but we have one slated to go on the exterior part. So it would cover that. But this gives you a little bit of an idea of where that area is. So it'd pick up everything that's below here on this black line.
So if we wanted the Dropbox to be within sight of the camera you already have, is that doable?
If we put it in here, yes. So we would have to
Okay.
put it out on this other side of the drive. So if
Okay.
we wanted to put it more on this inner part of the drive, that would have to be covered by the new camera that's not yet installed. But currently, right now, yes, we could put it, like if we wanted to put it over here by the tree.
And when you say not yet installed, has it already been ordered? Has the work been ordered? Are the people doing it contractors, or do they
Yes.
work for you?
Yep, we have a contract company that we use. Everything has already been ordered and slated. Unfortunately, this camera and a few others are back ordered right now, but they should be finished up by the end of the year. So we're waiting to finish the total project, and that is one of the pieces for that.
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, so that's Germantown, and I'm happy to show you the other locations as well. So this is the SV building here at Rockville. So the space we were thinking would be right here to put the box. So this is that main campus hub. It has excellent coverage, obviously, from what you can see. This is up and operating now.
So it's right outside of the front door, but the camera is from above.
Correct. And then we also have coverage from the parking lot as well. It's a little far out, but this is that area I was showing you with the overhead camera. So we have a ability to see who's walking up before they get into that area.
So that's like from the building across the parking lot.
Yes, it's on the parking garage. This is one of our Tacoma Park locations. This is on the backside of the ST building. I know they proposed two different ones. So either one would be a good option to either have it in this location. And then this is the Cultural Arts Center on Georgia Avenue. So right up in this location would be ideal. This camera is nice because it not only gets that area, but it also gets the drive. And here's the front side of ST, the main entrance.
So that's the front side of the first.
Correct.
The first picture you showed us. I spent time yesterday driving around and looking at these places, so I recognize them.
Sure.
So that's the front side of the ST building. So it's the front side of the first picture you showed us from Tacoma Park.
Yes, sir.
In between, you showed us the building that is on the other side of the Tacoma Park campus.
Yes, sir. And I'm happy to go back and show any others if you'd like to see them again, but those are the screen grabs for all of the locations that we've proposed.
Okay, Kevin.
Just, thank you, that was very informative. What is the video retention that you have for the cameras themselves?
It's a 30-day retention.
30 days.
Yes,
And
sir.
what is that adjustable in any fashion and form for our purposes?
I would have to get some clarification from our IT department to see if we could make an exception on individual cameras. Currently, the way they are set up, all serving, feeding through one server, I would be inclined to say no, but they might be able to extend that for individual cameras. But that would be something I have to consult with our IT department on to see if they could parse them out. But right now they all feed off of one main hub, because I've tried to get prior data before, and they have not been able to do that on that case. But I have not asked for individual cameras to be extended either. So I would be happy to find out and follow up.
Thank you. Kevin, I'll get to you in a second, Diane. Kevin, what is the retention requirement for video under the statute or the regulation? Do you know?
Well, it has to, it has to be under 24/7 surveillance from the time that the box is installed until Boris is proposed the day after the election, which roughly, what would that be, Boris? About 40 days?
It's
would be
around
about 6
42, 43 days, 6 weeks.
43 days.
Okay. And the idea would be that if there was something that happening with the Dropbox, that we would need to have, number one, we would need to have access right away, which I assume, Mr. Reed, you get access right away.
Yes, sir. That would not be an issue.
And then we would need to find out whether the, now, Kevin, when you said that Boris proposed that it be the day after the election, is there any current regulation, policy, or law that says how long the video recording has to be kept?
Well, it has to be maintained up until it's locked permanently on election night.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
And then obviously needs to be kept for the 22 months following the election.
I'm sorry, the video needs to be kept for the 22 months following the election?
Yes. That's
So
why that's an issue that we've had to work through. It's not impossible to work through, but it's an issue that we've had to work through for Montgomery County Public Schools because their video coverage is not, it runs over it in like 15 or 20 days. So we've had to do, and we've had to come up with a, you know, a plan B, for lack of a better term, for the schools. But I want to be
So
clear,
we have
at MCPS, they are under coverage 24/7 during the entire time. We just had to come up with a workaround for it.
Right, you had to come up with a workaround for the destruction of the video, and it sounds like you did.
Yes, the maintenance of it, and yeah, for the entire period.
Okay, Diane.
Oh, yeah, I guess I thank you. I probably could have put my hand out because Kevin touched on what I was going to ask about, and that's the retention requirement. But if I may ask the Mr. Reed, how accessible are these cameras and who's going to be monitoring them?
In terms of the data being accessible or the physical camera itself?
Well, the data being accessible on a, oh my God, in real time. And I guess the retention. Well, forget that second part. Who will have access in real time to see the cameras and I guess then to review, which would be follow on.
Sure. So in my department, it's actually the one that's responsible for obviously all cameras. We have a communications dispatch center that has live feed to all the cameras, whatever camera they would like to look at, they can select. So if there would be a need to pull one up, they rotate through, but if there's an incident going on or there's a request to monitor a specific area, they can do that and pull that up and live monitor that from our central dispatch. They can also be monitored from the campus themselves. So really they can be reached pretty much anywhere here within our network. And retrieving footage too, same, it would not be an issue because that all comes out of my shop. We do get requests occasionally for footage review, and it's just a matter of going back, putting in the timestamp, you know, and you know, tracking that footage back. One thing that I would throw out with the 30-day retention, if that was an issue and we weren't able to get it fully committed on, is it would be possible to download if there's like a 10-day overlap, right? We could capture that 10 days before it expired and archive it somewhere before it starts to re-record over that time. So that is another way it could be done by grabbing that. But the accessibility to the cameras is not an issue. The accessibility to the footage is not an issue.
Well,
And you said there's a,
go ahead, Diane.
yeah, just to finish up, and you said you have like a call center that watches this? I didn't catch the terminology.
Sure.
Who are the people who physically do that?
We have dispatchers, communications officers that man the phones, the radios, the cameras, watch, monitor all these things for primarily most of the 24/7 coverage. And then during the night, overnight hours, the officers on the campus have that same accessibility and redundancy on the campus locations. We are also staffed 24/7, 365 with campus officers. So aside from the camera footage, we have live people that are walking around and checking the spaces and places on the campuses as well.
Thanks. These are security officers?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would just comment that I believe that what Mr. Reed is describing in terms of the security measures far exceeds what the requirements are of the law and regulation. But it's also very interesting to hear. And I will also comment that retention of the video is not negotiable. That is something that we are required. If we are required to do it, that means that we cannot have a Dropbox at Montgomery College unless you are able to have access to that footage. It does sound like you have a way of doing that based on what you just described. Maybe you have an easier way of doing that after you consult with others. But that's not an if that's an issue. That's an issue. You know, we absolutely must be able to do that. So anyway, any other questions or comments for any of the nice people here from Montgomery College?
A point of clarification.
Yeah.
For my edification, Mr. Reed, I guess maybe, or Ms. Garrett, how many locations are you talking about? I've heard I've heard locations, and I'm
Great.
just not clear.
One in each campus is what I.
Three,
Okay, thank
one on
you.
each of our main campuses,
And
Tacoma
that would
Park,
be-
Rockville, and Germantown.
And,
Okay.
and Ms. Garrett, let me ask
Thank
you
you.
a question that Mr. Pace kind of mentioned, but I wanted to get your opinion since you're at the Tacoma
Sure.
Park campus. There are 3 different options that are there. There seems to be a fair distance between the west part of the campus and the east part of the campus. I say, having walked it yesterday. Um, and I know that you're not proposing to have multiple boxes on the Tacoma Park campus. But I wonder if you have a sense as to where the where is the most foot traffic, I guess, is the the question I'd be asking, and if you have a preference among those 3 sites, because it seems like there are cameras on all of them. I did notice that for the photograph or that Mr. Reed showed us of the, I guess, the north part of the student center. I forgot what it's called, but the Student Services Center. There are signs all over on every side of that location that says, "Don't stop on the street. Don't park here. Don't stop on the street," etc. I will tell you that that made me think that that side of the building might have its issues as a drop box, because I can tell you from experience, people will stop and will run over the drop box, drop their ballot in, and keep going. Because at least that's what's happened at other locations. But I just wanted to get a sense from you all as to whether you have a thought on the, where will, the most Montgomery College people see a drop box?
I mean, the foot traffic is definitely on the east side of the campus, the student services buildings. That's a hub, I would say. And very recognizable. Every student has to pass through those buildings. So that's definitely where the most foot traffic is. When you think about just if someone is wanting to pull up, drop it, and leave, because of where the cultural arts building, and because that street is there and it's not surrounded by houses, things like that, that is honestly an easier spot if someone wants to jump out of their car, put it in, and leave. The student services building, there are different points and different ways to get to it, but there isn't parking
right
there, and there are houses in that area, residential homes, and they have asked, the reason why the signs are there have a lot to do with, and I know Adam could speak to this a little bit more, a lot to do with wanting to keep as much traffic and people dropping off and picking up.
Right.
But
those
we
roads are
do
not
have
large.
right. They're very thin. We do have our service dock area, which you can pull into actually, and there's a path that you could walk right to that ballot box. So there is an option.
I'm
It's
sorry,
just not
which area are you talking about?
in the student services building, we have our drop off. It's a service area where people can drop off packages or other things like that, and actually to campus every day. So I pull in because I work inside of the student services building, and so it's a very easy. You could pull in go
so
to
I
the
didn't,
drop box.
so is that on the south side of the building or the north side of the building? Because I didn't see an area to pull in at the student
Well,
services
because you
building.
can't see it from,
Okay,
it's the service entrance.
okay. Well,
But there's a path that
is
walks
it-
you right to that door.
is it one of the locations that were marked in what the college sent us as far as their proposal?
Yes.
And I guess I'd
I
want to,
think it's the back, it was like the back of the,
it's the
maybe it would be
it's
called
the
south.
it's the part that's near the mathematics pavilion and the north pavilion.
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay. That's kind of what I was getting at. It sounded like that location, it has more foot traffic and also potentially better ability for people to stop. If we wanted to have a drive-through, we would have it at the Cultural Arts Building. But we've just heard that 60% of your students don't drive cars. So
From that campus, yes.
no, from that campus, it was more than 60%. From that campus, it was
Yes,
67 or something percent. It was a majority in each of your campuses, is what I heard. But
That is correct.
okay, that is very helpful. Any other questions or for our representatives from Montgomery College?
Mr. President, just quickly, I know as we're saying, people jumping out of cars, all these locations and the boxes that you're proposing are all going to be ADA accessible. So in other words, folks, there are ramps for wheelchairs and other form of accessibility that would make them ADA compliant. Is that correct, Ms. Garrett, Mr. Pace, and Mr. Reed?
Well, I have a question for Kevin.
knowledge-
Is that a requirement for drop boxes? Because I'm not
To my
aware.
knowledge, they are accessible, but I don't know if Adam's still on or not, or Mark, but I'm pretty certain because students have to get in and out. And so we have to make sure that they're accessible for our students.
Well, they would need to be ADA compliant, but we would be able to put in temporary measures if needed. And I'd be very surprised if it's not ADA compliant already.
Right, that would be my guess as well.
They
Adam?
are, those locations are.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your being here. I know this was a longer conversation than we expected, but it was very, very informative. So thank you very much. Lisa, do we have other public comment? If Lisa said something, I could not hear her.
I see her microphone muted.
I'm
Boris?
sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
Can you hear us? We're sharing a microphone here, so just so that to make sure that there's not the sound bouncing.
no, we appreciate that on behalf of our ears. Thank you. So Lisa, what's the word?
So there are no other public comments that no one address the board in advance. I don't know if anyone
Okay.
on.
Okay, if anybody else, I'm going to come to you in a second, Diane. If anybody else has a public comment they want to make, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Diane, go ahead.
Great, really quickly, just as a housekeeping measure, David, can you please tell me when in the agenda we will have this portion of, that we will have this discussion for the board?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes, as soon as
Please.
I pull up the agenda, I can tell you.
Thanks.
I was going to, well, let me put it to the board this way. I was going to go back to the agenda and follow the agenda. And I know that Boris has presentations on a number of different subjects, and I was going to address drop boxes under drop boxes. If the pleasure of the board is to change the order and to have the discussion of drop boxes now, we can do that. but I guess I wanted to get a sense of that.
And if it's
Question.
Alex, I'll come to you in a second. I think Diane was not quite finished.
just really fast, and if it doesn't matter to anybody else, I would prefer for a sort of an emergent reason that we do the Dropbox discussion later in the agenda.
Okay, I understand.
Other than now, that's,
I understand. You want to be there for the Dropbox agenda, and you may have to leave us for a few
That's
minutes
it for a short-
and come back.
correct.
Does anyone have an objection to that? We'll just follow the agenda as indicated. Okay, no objection. We'll do that for you, Diane.
Well, thank you.
Alex, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just had a question, Mr. President. Is it your expectation that we will actually be deciding Dropbox locations today, or does it have to be done today, or how does that going to work?
Well, it was my expectation that we were going to take a position on Dropboxes today, but let me ask Boris about the must it be done today. That's kind of a combination of a Boris question and a Kevin question.
So we have a certain deadlines to meet in terms of submitting the paperwork for the both polling places and drop boxes to the state, and those deadlines will hit before our board meets in November. So it would be appreciated if the decision could be made today.
Okay, Ami.
My comment is, do we have enough information today to be able to make a decision in any event? I'm not talking about pros or cons, but it seems to me we don't have a complete answer on the security issue. We really need to know that they can accommodate our requirement before we even consider it.
Well, let me ask, let me say two things in response to that. Number one is that we did have the head of security for Montgomery College tell us that he has a way to hang on to all of the video.
Well,
By
what I heard, David, was that he had to go back to his IT people.
No, there were two different things that he said. They're not inconsistent with each other. One of them was that he has to go back to his IT people if he wants to make exceptions for certain cameras to the 30-day rule. And the other thing that he said was that if he doesn't make an exception to the 30-day rule, he can download the video after 30 days, and then he would have the second group of video on top of it. So he said that he had a workaround. I don't remember if his exact words were workaround, but he said that he has a way to hang on to that video. I personally would prefer that it be done the first way, but the second way still meets the requirements that it be done. My second point would be that if the board sees fit to do this, but wants to say that it's pending, making sure that the locations meet the requirements, including the security requirement, we can do that as well. And then if it turns out that there are issues that arise, I think anything that we decide to do, the staff is going to have to check on. And I know Boris well enough to know that even if we didn't ask him to do it, he would still be checking on it. So I believe that if there were an issue with something that the board were to decide to do, we could revisit whatever it is. But what I heard was they have 24/7 video surveillance. They also, not required by law, have a person who watches the video 24/7. That is not a requirement of state law. It is a requirement that some other states have tried to impose, but Maryland has not imposed that requirement, and it's an extra bonus that they have that. They have security on campus that will be basically walking around campus and making sure that nothing bad happens to our drop boxes. That's also not a requirement of law. And so, I'm not sure I would agree with the assessment that we do not have enough information to make a decision today. If board members would be more comfortable, we could try to have an additional meeting between now and our November meeting after, Montgomery College can check on the question that we just asked. But like I said, he said very clearly, at least that's what I heard. Others can tell us what they heard. He said very clearly that he has a way to accomplish the goal.
Well, he thinks so. I mean, frankly, I don't think he seemed to understand what the requirements were until we told him today.
Well, I would disagree with that. I think he didn't understand what the retention requirement was
Yeah,
until we told him
yeah,
today.
all right. I'll that.
I think he had a pretty good idea. He came with pictures of his cameras. I think he had a pretty good idea that we want a camera on this Dropbox.
Yeah. I agree with that. He didn't know the retention issue, though.
That's true. Diane.
Thank you. I'm not a technological whiz. I think we know that. So I want to ask Kevin on the retention issue. And
Kevin's not a technological whiz either. He will tell you that as well, but go ahead.
But at least he knows the requirements of what the law requires for a retention. I'm confused with the terminology when Mr. Reed talked about capturing it and keeping it, or copying it and keeping it. It seems very unclear to me. And is there a requirement with an original versus a copy, or however this is? It just seems that there are an awful lot of questions that need answering.
The camera needs to be under 24/7 coverage.
Got that.
You have to be able to, it has to be under that coverage, video live, a video feed for the entire time that it's installed.
And the retention requirements.
It has to retain, it has to be, it's considered election information, which then triggers the 22-month retention.
And do you have to retain the original copies or the originals? I don't understand what Mr. Reed was describing to overcome what seems to be a limitation.
So we have different arrangements with different organizations. For some of the municipalities, they download it and they give it to the Board of Elections and we retain it. For Montgomery County Public Schools, they're very cautious, understandably so, that they comply with FERPA. So they retain the video footage, and we would need to request it from Montgomery County Public Schools. It just kind of depends on which organization, but each organization has to agree that they will have video coverage for the entire duration that the box is there, and that they will agree to retain it for what's required under federal law. And they can either satisfy that by either giving it to us and or retaining it themselves for the 22-month period.
Okay, and I think it sounds like Mr. Reed does not have a determinable, a specific known way that he will accommodate that 22-month retention.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that statement.
And then I'm a little confused on this, but
okay, I don't think he said that. I think he said that he can download it. I think he was saying that he's not sure. It sounded like he has cameras all over 3 campuses and he has them constantly running. He has video for all 3 campuses, not just at the cameras that we care about, but lots of cameras in lots of different places.
Right.
And it sounds like in order to save, his video for all of those places, he has to talk to his IT people, but he said he can download the video. That sounds to be precisely the same thing that Kevin just said we get from other places.
Well, it is.
In fact, it's less than MCPS because MCPS doesn't let us keep it. MCPS says, ask us for what you need.
Right. Well,
and Montgomery College could say the same thing. Montgomery College has some students, I'm sure, who are below majority age.
Yeah, and I think I'm on the record as having a problem with the Montgomery County retention also. So just trying to be consistent. Thank
Okay.
you.
Daniel, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to reference Kevin's statement. So the downloadable files can be given to the Board of Elections to retain for the 22-month duration that's under the law. Is that correct?
Correct. If they're willing to do that, that's fine.
And
And
that means
and Tacoma Park, Friendship Heights, Rockville, some of the municipalities, that's what they do. They just download it. MCPS's concern is obviously that they have certain constraints due to federal law.
What do Leisure World,
David, I have
Riderwood,
I have a continue question
okay,
just to make
okay,
sure
but
I don't miss it.
just 1 second, Daniel.
Mm.
I'm following up on your question. So we have senior communities where we have drop boxes, Leisure World, Riderwood, Asbury, Friendship Heights. Do they also do it through downloadable fashion, or do you know?
I'm not certain. I think Boris, I think they're going to download it, correct?
So we try to take approach for the 2024 cycle where we would be the body that retains the video footage from
Great.
every organization that we are working for.
Perfect.
And what Kevin referenced earlier, you know, me maybe asking a bit more to keep video rolling for another day after the election day. It's just to cover all the bases. And we will be at some point, I think it will come before the board. You will see in our budget documents, we want to buy this big portable hard drive. So all the videos should be recorded, downloaded to the board, and retained at the Board of Elections. We would like to be custodians of all the footage.
So can I reclaim my time now and say that's exactly?
Absolutely.
That's the direction I was going to go, Boris, to say when are we going to be the custodians of this very important data file, but also I think the scenario that was presented that this data file can be contiguous as well, which means that a file can be downloaded before it's overwritten, and then a second file will basically satisfy the 30 days requirement and will be downloaded when those numbers of days are satisfied. But you'll be able to store and archive both of those files, and it wouldn't be in violation of the law. That's for both you and Kevin. Boris.
So, Kevin, if I can just speak first from the operational point of view, and then Kevin can cover, because we went back and forth on some language that we have with in communication with different organizations where we are placing drop boxes. So when it comes to the retention of the footage that we hope would be retained within the Board of Elections, it's from the operational point of view, whether the footage is made on 24-hour cycle or 6-week cycle does not necessarily make any difference. What we are looking for is the video footage that will provide continuous coverage from the installation date to the date that it overlaps with the election day or day after. So depending on the setup of this video footage, video recording systems, again, now I'm not being technologically savvy to answer all of this. I believe that some of those systems will make a 24-hour Windows recordings and then keep adding them. So when you pull the data, you can just pull by the date. Others will have a date stamp on their video footage that will run for continuously for 6 weeks. So you'll have to roll the tape to get to the date that you want to. I apologize, we never looked into all the technical details of MCPS, different municipalities, the different facilities, but our bottom line is we need footage that will cover 6 weeks from the installation date to the election date, preferably on a hard drive provided by the board, so it can be downloaded and stored at the board.
So you've answered the question, because the system we currently have is in compliance. So if Montgomery College meets any of those systems that we're currently using, then it will be in compliance when it comes to the security coverage of those drop boxes. Is that correct? Is that a
Uh,
correct statement?
For me, Kevin can support me on this, as long as we can put our hands on and store it in the building. The footage for those 6 weeks, I'm good.
Kevin?
It shouldn't be a problem, Daniel.
Okay, thank you,
And
sir.
like, for example, MCPS, I mean, we, you know, the board paid to get a separate server. There's a dedicated server that MCPS uses for drop boxes in Montgomery County.
Back
How much
to
did it cost?
I've got to go back and look. You've already paid for it. That's the good news.
That is the good news. No,
Yes.
I just wanted to know in case there's anything, you know, it's a precedent for whether if we need to make any other adjustments for anyone else.
Yeah. Well, I'll look at it, David. I forget exactly what the number was.
Okay.
So
Anyone
if I-
else before we move to Boris's report? Alex?
Kevin, has MCPS ever given us access to any of the video footage data as an actual fact?
No, but we've never asked for any
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
access to any of the video.
have we ever denied it? Have they ever denied access?
No, we've never asked for it. So the answer is a request has never been made.
Have we ever audited to see whether they have retained it according to state requirement?
Well, when we get to my report, one of the things I will be doing is meeting with Stephanie Williams, who's the general counsel to MCPS, and we will have a MOU and an agreement in place where they will be agreeing to the retention schedule that's required under by the State Board of Elections. But no, we have not done an audit of it.
Have we gotten any complaints of people tampering with our drop boxes? I'm aware that we once looked at video for people who were tearing down political signs, but I'm not aware that we have ever had a complaint of someone tampering with our drop boxes.
Yeah, I hate to jinx myself like that because no, we have not.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else before we go to Boris's report? Okay, Boris, please proceed.
Okay, I will just go through the report. The report was shared with the board, published on the website last Thursday. The minutes from the previous meetings were also shared. Our website contains the documents that were prepared for the board and that will be discussed by the board at today's meeting. When it comes to the action items from the previous board meeting, the outreach calendar is now standard part of the packet. List of all the Twitter accounts that the Board of Elections, Montgomery County Board of Election is following, and that are following us, was shared with the board on September 30th this year. I also reached out to the board about our outreach efforts at the Poolsville Day, as the issue was raised at the last board meeting. The staff was present at the Poolsville Day. It was not one of the most fortunate events because of the severe weather warning, but we stayed. I know that some vendors left, but staff stayed throughout the whole event. We have reached out to the Republican Women's Club as suggested by the board member. We already have one event confirmed that we will be attending and delivering a presentation on voter registration, trying to solicit application for the election workers. When it comes to staff's effort to further increase use of undeliverable mail as a tool to perform list maintenance, I just wanted to touch briefly on a few items that staff will be doing as we go forward. Number one, every frequently asked question on our website will have a question addressing this issue. Our mail, our envelopes that we sent out from the board will contain the language instructing anyone who receives that envelope, if it's not addressed to someone who resides at the household, to give it back. I did speak to our colleagues from the state. We are trying to have the same message on everything that goes from the state. It already is on a number of mailings, so we hope to expand on that even further. We will have certain outreach activities to bigger communities towards the end of the year and beginning of January. This day will overlap with, I believe, January 15th or January 17th, when the state plans to mail out applications for voters to request mail-in ballots. If we know that around a bit less under 600,000 applications will go out in January, this will be the timing to raise the issue of undeliverable mail and have it on everyone's radar as we go into that massive mailing. We also included in the budget document that was shared with the board explanations on the budget lines that were Alex requested earlier to bring more clarity what we mean by those very few concise words trying to describe a budget line as we pull it from the system. I hope that we achieve that. If there are any other budget lines that board members would like more information, please let us know. But as we go through the budget process, we might be adding more explanation for some budget lines by ourselves. When it comes to the voter registration statistics, I shared the report with the board on October 2nd. The report is available on our website, just like reports from all the previous years. The numbers are that bit under 680,000 is the number of active voters, 65,000 inactive, with a total of 743,190 voters in Montgomery County. When it comes to the State Board of Elections, we will have a visit by the state election administrator. That visit is scheduled for for mid-November. Personnel issues. We have been busy throughout the whole year looking at the personnel vacant positions, filling those positions. Board already knows that for some of them we had to re-advertise, but I'm glad that I can report that we have completed interviews for 2 office service coordinators who will join the voter registration once the onboarding process is completed by the county's human resources department. The ad for the manager of water services position was published, was shared through the state, different outlets. That the ad has closed. I hope that we will start having interviews next week. We had to re-advertise 2 IT technician positions that had also closed, I believe, on Friday. So we should be conducting those interviews shortly and or onboarding future colleagues. When it comes to the temporary positions, it was previously reported to the board that the state decided that we will use the legacy poll books for the 2024, meaning we brought some temporary colleagues to help us with prepping those legacy poll books as we go forward. We also have a few colleagues who are helping us with outreach events on a limited hours basis on weekly every week. Like any other county agency, we participated in the job fair that was organized by at the Silver Springs Civic Center. For us, like other agency, everyone had a table to advertise those temporary positions, trying to increase hiring. We also had our outreach table there to increase voter registration and the election workers hiring in the same time. Some numbers of the interest that was expressed in our positions are in the report, and we hope to see those names appear on the list of applicants for the upcoming interviews. When it comes to budget, as I said, budget covers the first quarter. No surprises there. We are within the planned limits. There was an issue raised before of one budget line that reflected $830,000, which was money added at the end to meet the requirements of House Bill 1200. Our finance colleague Chuck is working with the OMB to merge that budget line with the rest of the funding for the election workers, as it should be reflected going forward. When it comes to the section activities in the water services, the voter registration team keeps on daily activities, which are list maintenance, voter registration of new registrants, updating the existing records, or processing cancellations as they come along from different sources, the data that comes in. When it comes to the mail-in voting part of the voter services, we will be assisting Rockville to conduct its municipal elections. So we will be onboarding few colleagues to help us with the processing of those ballots, canvass, and scanning going forward. This is a standard practice. We as a county board, we don't implement municipal elections, but we do support localities in organization of their elections. Most of the municipalities in our county just ask for our voter registration lists. Rockville, we assist a bit more because with the further help in terms of processing and scanning and tabulating their vote by mail ballots. When it comes to IT section, as I mentioned earlier, the temporary staff is helping with the performing maintenance on the legacy poll books and reinstalling the software as they will be used in 2024. Our IT manager, then she is working with tabs to get the replacement module in for election workers and future vote operational. We are in a testing phase. We are on schedule when it comes to that activity as well. Janet is also supporting Rockville, and she will be working with our colleagues from Frederick in their effort to hire GIS staff, because we do have one individual like that. We have the system in place, so we will help them. When it comes to operations sections, paperwork. We are doing surveys. We are doing preparing the paperwork previously for the early voting sites, now for the drop boxes and the polling places. All the documentation that has to be submitted up once the board approves either polling places or drop boxes to the state. We have deadlines, as I said. We are looking at the mid-November. There's one paragraph in my report that it will be relevant in the context of discussion of on the polling places. Initially, we have cleared with MCPS the use of all the schools for the as polling places in 2024. Board will remember that initially the advanced placement testing was supposed to overlap with the election day on May 14th. The MCPS came forward and they managed to move the date, so AP testing will not overlap with the election day. However, they are not in a position to move IB testing date, which is on May 14th. MCPS came up with a proposal for the board to provide 2 schools that MCPS can use to bring children from different parts of the county to take their IB tests and on 2 separate centralized locations. Those 2 schools are Bethesda Chevy Chase and Watkins Mill High School. One will cover southern part of the county, the other one will cover northern part of the county. When we get to the polling place proposal, the staff still proposed to keep the plan intact, to still count on Bethesda Chevy Chase and Watkins Mill as is, to give us a chance to sit down and talk to MCPS about other alternatives, about options that could be considered, numbers of children that will be taking these classes, the shifts, possible cohabitation, everything. So I would appreciate if board give us a chance, so we would we'll meet with the MCPS and we'll share the conversation proposals with the board as we go forward. When it comes to the meetings and events, we had Senator Brian Feldman from District 15. He visited the board, met with the staff. We basically focused the conversation on 2024 and our everyday work. I went to Annapolis with the clerk and the Rockville City clerk and the president of the election board to meet new state election administrator to discuss upcoming Rockville Rockville elections, and all agreements that are in place. Upcoming meetings, I believe that we all will be on Thursday in Annapolis to biennial. And as reported earlier on 29th, I'm attending League of Women Voters open house, and Jerry Damaris is scheduled to visit the county board on November 15th. That will be director's report for this meeting.
Thank you very much, Boris. Alex.
Just a comment and a question, Boris. I wanted to thank you and Chuck Williams and the rest of your staff for breaking out some of these line items on the budget. I appreciate your efforts in that regard. I noticed there is a orange shaded row on the last page called stipends, 69010. And then of course we have on the first page, other professional services, which you've broken out as election worker stipends. Is it the case that these two paid for the same thing and then ultimately they're going to be consolidated? So that ultimately, if we're looking at this, the budget for election worker stipends is really 2.2 million instead of 1.4?
That's correct. So initial budget request was in amount of 1.4 million, and that is listed under the line 6530. And if you would recall, once the House Bill 1200 was passed, we went back to the county executive, county council with the math, what would be the financial impact for the Montgomery County. The money was approved, and money was not added to this line, but separate line was created. So Chuck will work with OMB to merge the lines going forward to bring clarity on this. As you rightly pointed out, what's the total budgeted amount for the election workers, basically election judges.
So the county council approved more than I guess what we had originally planned or asked for?
It had to be approved because it became a legal requirement to add $100 bonus for the returning election judges.
Right. Okay, understood.
And the legislation also introduced the floor for the pay for the election judges. If you remember, previously we were paying $180 for the voter operation judges at during election day or early voting, and the legislation introduced $250 minimum pay, plus increased the training from $30 to $50 as well. And all that combined brought us to the increase that was presented and asked for.
That was the 831,000.
That's correct.
So that, I guess that legislation came into effect after the original budget was prepared. Is that right?
If I recall properly, we met with the county executive sometime mid-February, and county council mid-April. So the budget as a document that left board long time before that. And we don't really have an option to intervene with the document as is while it's in the going from OMB to county executive, county council.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Boris about the director's report? Daniel.
Mr. President, is this now a good time to make comment about outreach?
I think we have outreach as a separate item on the agenda.
Okay. Well, then,
So I was going to make comments on outreach at that point. As you may recall, I said that at the very start of the meeting.
Sounds good. So my hands are down. So.
Okay. Ami.
Just one quick comment. That was a very good and very efficient director's report, and I just wanted to say I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. I agree with Ami's compliment. So thank you, Boris. Anyone else on the director's report? Oh, no. Okay. So, what's next, Boris? It looks like the board attorney's report is next. Kevin.
Yes. So keeping with what we were talking about before, I've drafted MOUs with Sandy Spring, the city of Gaithersburg, and Montgomery County for the 14 early voting sites. Boris and I are going to take a look at those probably next week to finalize them, and then we'll get them circulated. Boris has sent an email out sort of as a sort of letter agreement with the municipalities that are going to be having drop boxes in other locations, including Friendship Heights, Tacoma Park, City of Rockville, and some of the other facilities that will have drop boxes. So that will be in place. I'm meeting with Stephanie Williams on October 27th for us to review what legal documents need to be put in place for the drop boxes to be installed at the high schools. And hopefully we will be able to finalize that. Boris has not surprisingly been interested in moving this process along so that we have these agreements in place sooner rather than later. And I am endeavoring to try and achieve that goal. So those MOUs with MCPS, the county, Sandy Spring, Gaithersburg, are all hopefully going to get finalized in November. Your bylaws that you passed last month have been submitted to the State Board of Election staff for their review and to be presented to the state board. And I've also submitted David Naiman's training certificate as evidence that we can meet in closed session, because at least one board member has to have gone through the Open Meetings Compliance Act training. If anyone is interested in doing so and is somehow can't find the link that we sent to you previously, please let me know. We'll send it to you again. So those things are in place, and hopefully the state board will be adopting the bylaws this month. And that is all I have.
Kevin, a question for you. Are you saying that we have MOUs both with early voting sites and with Dropbox location?
Yes, because we want every location that has a Dropbox to affirmatively agree that they understand that that Dropbox will be under 24/7 surveillance, video surveillance, and that there is a retention schedule required under federal law that needs to be satisfied. So they're not terribly legalistic, but we like a document that confirms that everyone knows what the requirements are.
So I know we have 50 some Dropbox locations. I imagine that we are in the process of making sure that the holders of those locations, for lack of a better phrase, are familiar with all of the requirements, because the state law has changed on this question.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. And of course, obviously the MOUs that we have with Sandy Spring, Gaithersburg, and Montgomery County, to use that location as an early voting site, we roll into those agreements the Dropbox and the requirements for the Dropbox in those MOUs.
Okay. I would also just point out that we do have, I believe, one non-high school in Montgomery County that we are using as a Dropbox location. I believe we have an elementary school that we are using. So
yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but we specifically
WIMS is in its name, but it's not named after. It's not named after Greg.
Yeah, we specifically identify that in addition to the high schools that are utilized.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin? Okay, the next thing is old business, board approval of the legal descriptions of precinct boundaries, changes approved in 2022. Boris.
Okay, this will be very, very brief. There was a decennial census, there was redistricting, the board touched multiple boundaries of multiple precincts. There were 76 precinct boundaries that were changed by board decision in run-up to 2022 elections. The staff produced a written explanation of those changes. As I previously reported, legal descriptions were posted on our website. We invited public for comments. And now it's on the board to approve it. Going forward, we would need every board member to sign every single legal description individually. Once all the process is completed, the documents will be sent to the state as required.
So, Boris, you need us to give you a wet signature or an electronic signature?
I think previously we had wet signature. Kevin, I don't know if electronic signature can work on this.
Are you
No,
are you bringing them to the biennial on Thursday?
I don't think that the board wants me to walk around with 76 folders. So
I'm just trying to make it easy for you to get that many signatures because we're, you know, when are we all in the same place?
Well, Boris, our dear president was volunteering to carry the 76 folders for you so that you don't.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would be happy to carry them, and I'm sure it'll be great fun for all of you when I'm chasing you down, asking you to sign your name 76 times.
So Boris, is this something that could be done in November if there's an in-person meeting?
yes. I believe that during in-person meeting, or if any board members is in the neighborhood, please let us know. We should have, after the board meetings, we should have the folders prepared, hopefully spread them out in the boardroom, so whenever possible to collect those signatures.
And you'll give us extra ink for our pens.
Absolutely.
Let me just make a suggestion here, which is that things frequently can come up at the last minute, as all of us have experienced. So, faced with the choice of an in-person meeting, which we might be having in November that we haven't quite set yet, but rather than relying on the fact that we're going to have an in-person meeting and that you're going to be there and that nothing will intervene from your being there, if you have an opportunity to stop by the Board of Elections before that, I think that maybe Boris will be a little bit calmer. I was going to make a reference to some of his habits, but I'm not going to do that. But maybe he'll be a little bit calmer if we were to sign in advance. And I plan to practice what I preach, Boris, and I will make arrangements to come and sign my name 76 times prior to our November meeting.
Thank you.
I noticed, Mr. President, there are no signature lines for Margie and me, so I guess membership has its privileges.
Boris and Kevin, is that accurate? Are Alex and Margie off the hook?
My understanding is for the board members.
I think they are off the hook.
Okay. Well, congratulations to Alex and Margie. You may have the budget committee, but you don't have to sign 76 different precinct boundaries. So, okay. So, Boris, do you need us to do anything today?
I don't know, Kevin, if there is a need for a motion by the board to approve those legal descriptions.
Yes, someone make a motion to approve the legal descriptions.
So moved by Daniel Karoma.
Okay, Daniel has moved it. Is there a second? Kina has seconded Daniel's motion. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Alex, you did not vote, but I believe that Ami is temporarily off and Diane is temporarily off. Did you want to vote on that motion?
Oh, I didn't realize are they both absent?
They are both temporarily absent and they both say they're coming back.
Okay. Certainly, I'd be happy to vote on this. I did notice that in a couple of these, there's a census tract and it has X's through it. I don't know if that was a mistake or.
It was updated. It was updated.
Oh, it was. Okay. Because what I have here is the draft from September 11th.
It was updated because when we sent it out for a public comments to the board, we also had a second, third read through on the staff level. So.
All right. Well, Mr. President, I am pleased to vote aye on that motion.
Okay. And then I would also add that it appears that Ami is on, but needs to be promoted. So we will give her an opportunity to vote after she's promoted. I'll use the chair's prerogative to say that the vote is not quite closed yet, so that if she wants to vote, she can. Oh, there she is.
Okay, I'm back here and I will vote the way Alex did.
Okay.
I lost what he actually said because I was off for a couple of minutes.
Okay. Alex voted in favor, as did Daniel Kina and I, and Ami is now also voting in
Yes,
favor.
I will vote in favor then.
So it is unanimous.
And now I'm on for at least another half hour. Sorry about that.
Okay, Boris, do you want to move to your presentation?
Yes, Lisa will bring the presentation up. So this is the presentation of the 2024 polling places. The board will remember that the reason why this is all business is that at the last board meeting, we wrote a memo to the board and presented to the public of our intention to touch on 5 polling places, and those same polling places will be presented today. When we designed the plan, we looked at the House Bill 410 and the requirement to have the same number of buildings used as a polling places in 2024 as we had in 2018. The number that we had in 2018 was 234. With the proposal that we presented today to the board and public, that number is the same. It's equal. We are matching the number from 2018. As I said, there are deadlines for us to complete the paperwork and to present the plan to the board and hopefully for board to approve it, and then do everything to meet the deadline that state requires from us, and that is November 14th. And also one of the requirements in run-up to this board meeting or any board meeting when any decisions are being considered about polling places is to send the notifications out. Notification went out 2 weeks prior to the board meeting. We have 175 email addresses or so on the list by now. I think vast majority are the elected officials as prescribed by the law, and maybe some 20-30 individuals and organizations that signed up to receive notifications as we go forward. When it comes to changes, these are the 5 polling places that we propose to change location compared to 2022. You will see that first 3 we are proposing to deconsolidate polling places that were consolidated in 2022 due to the ongoing construction projects in their home buildings. The other 2, the last 2, Gettysburg Library, Brookhaven Elementary School, these are coming back to their home buildings as those buildings have been renovations in those buildings has been completed. So in essence, when we look at the Springbrook High and Burnt Mills Elementary School, we will split these 2 polling places. That will reduce the number of voters that we had in 2022 in one location. Each polling place will go to their home building. The same will go for the Stonegate Elementary School in Mid-County, and the Fifth and Nancy Elementary School and Nancy Dasick Community Recreation Centers. At the chart, you will see locations in 2022, the voter count when they were combined, voter count that we will have in 2024 as we split them. These are the links to the proposed list of all 234 polling places. One is alpha-driven, one is numeric for the board and for the general public to follow and find their place if they are interested. We will just go very briefly through the couple of maps that we work with the state provided for us. You will see all the red dots represent polling places throughout the county. We could not use the names of these polling places because it would make, I don't know even how to describe it. It destroys the map. You don't see the map at all. What you will see here is the numeric designation of the district and precinct for each polling place. If you go back 2 slides, this numeric list of the polling place would be handy to follow all the locations as you deem necessary. As it was the case for the early voting sites, we imposed the polling place locations on voter density map in the county. You will see that the polling places are concentrated in those areas. The same goes for the minority population in the county. It's the same data, it's the same map that was used for early voting, just different points were imposed on the map itself. And the voter turnout, again, the map was originally presented to the board as a part of early voting presentation. Now just we tried to present how the voter turnout looks like against the polling places that we had in 2022 and the changes that we'll have in 2024. Household income, I believe, is the last map, also projects data that was received earlier. Next few maps will just touch very briefly, will present very briefly those 5 polling places that are changing, the building, physical building where the voters voted last time around. You will see the green square is where the 2024 building is. The red star is basically 2024 polling location that was used. And you will see the distance between these 2 buildings. In this case, is 2.5 miles. The key to mention here is that Burnt Mills Elementary School is coming back to its own precincts. It was out of the precinct polling place last time around. The next one is Stonegate Elementary School. The same thing. The building is within the precinct. The distance between polling place that was used in 2022 and the one that's 2024 is 1.7 miles. The 5th Nancy Daisy is the same thing. This was a bit of more difference distance between 2 polling locations at 2.8 miles, but the 5th is back into its own precinct boundaries. Gatesburg Library, South Lake Elementary School. This is literally moved within the precinct boundaries from one location to another. It's 8.7 miles difference. And the same goes for the Parkland Middle School and Brookhaven Elementary School. It's within the precinct move, going back to the location that has been used for before. So once the renovation is completed. And that will be a very short presentation of those 5 polling places changes.
Thank you, Boris. Are there any questions? Actually, before we get to questions, does anybody want to put on the table to move to support the staff's recommendation on those 5 polling place decisions? Alex.
Mr. President, although I cannot vote, I would move that my colleagues vote to approve the proposed staff locations for polling place changes in the document that Mr. Brockovich just presented to us.
Okay, is there a
This
second?
is Ami. I will second. And
Okay.
Alex, you can vote until Diane comes back.
I was about to say, Alex, you
Yes.
can vote.
Yes, I was going to say as well that Alex, we are not holding you to your words about not voting.
But only on this occasion. Yeah.
But yes, but only on this occasion. Exactly. We will hold you to your words on the other occasion. Okay. Is there any discussion? I would just say 2 things very quickly. Number one, I am just absolutely thrilled that we only have this number of changes, because for those of us who've been on the board, we've sometimes had as many as 10% of all of our registered voters affected by polling place changes. These changes are actually changes back to original locations. So in almost all these cases, we're getting people closer to their polling place, or at least no worse off. And so whatever the cause, and Boris and I have talked about this a number of times as to what the cost might be, we won't bore you with it here. I'm just very pleased that we're not moving that many polling places this time, because as we all know, if you move a polling place, it it puts a burden on the voters. So I am thrilled that we are where we are, and I thank the staff for all of their work on this. Anyone else have anything they would like to say? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of Alex's motion to endorse the staff's proposal, please raise your hand. It is unanimous, including Alex voting in Diane's temporary absence. Thank you all very much. Boris, back to you to talk about the website.
Okay, I believe that this will be maybe a bit shorter today about the website because of some things that are work in progress. I reported to the board last time that our colleagues from TEPS are going through the county websites of the different agencies, and we are also in the pipeline to reinvent or renovate our website. They started small. I think they are fixing headers first on all the websites through the county agencies, and you will see the slightly changed header on our website as well. So that part is work in progress. We try to provide as much information as we go forward. I would like to share with the board that I tried to obtain some statistics about usage of our website, and I would like to make that going forward, try to have it, if possible, on a monthly basis. I'll be honest with you, for the first time, the dates were very unfortunate because I tried to pull the data from the last board meeting to today's board meeting. Going forward, I'll try to pull this data, to obtain this data, because I cannot pull it by myself, on the 1st of every month.
Perfect.
So we would bear with me for the first couple of months until we have enough data to do any comparison and anything to decide. But the idea is to see how many page views we had in a month or since the last board meeting, how many active users were those, how many sessions, basically how many actually interactions with the board websites different people had. Basically numbers of sessions being defined that any interaction that lasted for 10 seconds or longer or had 2 or more jumps between the parts of the on the website. I can tell you since the last board meeting that average time that individuals spent on our website was 1 minute and 4 seconds. We had a bit under 7,400 page views since the last board meeting. We had 3,267 unique visitors. Basically, not people who went there multiple times, but people who were unique to this. So, as I said, number of engaged sessions is 2,671. These are the sessions that lasted 10 seconds or more, or included jumping between two screens or more. When it comes to the pages, no surprise that homepage is most visited with 3,000. Job descriptions came second as 425, which is, I believe, the result of quite a bit of advertising and the job fair that Lisa and staff organized and all the promotions we did in that. Calendar came third, then followed by the board meetings, election worker program overview, and so on and so on.
I'm sorry, what came third for us?
So calendar.
Oh, calendar.
Calendar is there. So we have a state election calendar on our website that is from different conversations and phone calls that we receive. We know that people come and visit on our website as well. So election worker program, we received 283 views, and I believe this number will go up as we get closer to the end of the year and everything. So as I said, this is just I'm trying to give a kind of a reference point to the board, what to expect going forward. As I said, I believe that if I get this numbers for the next board meeting, they will not be too much different because they will just reflect the whole month of October. But we will We just have to keep doing it month after month until we create enough base to do any comparisons and any lessons learned. But that is idea for now, and I hope that would be, that it will help us all.
I think the data is a wonderful idea, and I'm glad you're collecting it and sharing it with us. Kina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Boris. Thank you very much for sharing that data. I'm also a data enthusiast, and with that, I like trying to create goals from this. You had shared that regarding engagement, significant engagement was at 10 seconds and some change. Is that correct?
Number of engaged sessions is 2,671. That's number of sessions that lasted longer than 10 seconds or had 2 or more screen or page views.
Okay, so regarding that engagement, are we hoping to get a higher number, and that it might lead to either more voter engagement, better voter turnout, something like that? I say that to say that if we're getting a certain number of seconds to engagement, we want to hope that it's leading somewhere, right? If it's 1 second that someone only needed 1 second to get there, that's one thing. If 10 seconds is more indicative of someone taking action afterwards to actually get to a polling place, to actually mail in their ballot, something like that, it would be good to identify goals, either as a group or otherwise, to utilize that data effectively.
So if I may say 2 things. Number one, once early voting sites are approved by the state, this will be something that I believe will attract voters' interest. The same will go for the drop boxes once approved by the board, submitted to the state, approved by the state. So these are the parts of the election process that will attract voters' interest as we go forward. Now, again, I'm not an IT person, so don't blame me for any statement here. If you look for the short span of time that people might spend on our website, I can argue easily that those are people who are looking for the application to request vote by mail-in ballot, or to update their voter registration. And those links are literally to the state board. So we are conduit here. We have links on our website that take voter to the voter lookup, voter update, mail-in ballot request, and everything. And I'll be honest with you, I'm just fine with that, because if people see utility in our website for the need, as long as they know how to find what they need, and then they know that we are the answer, not some, I think previous board members will remember those websites that try to provide advice on redistricting in the run-up.
Not just on redistricting, Boris. We had people who went to the polls on election day based on non-government websites that sent them to the wrong polling place.
Exactly. So for us, we can have multiple goals. I think that our bottom line goal is, let us be the sole provider of the accurate information to every registered voter. And then I hear you. I believe that engaging voters more would help, but I believe we need this part, like early voting, drop boxes, those actual aspects that people would need. And then we will have if you go to early voting, they will have a link to plan their public transport to visit that site through the link that will lead to our colleagues at the DOT. So we will provide service.
Okay.
And some people will be more savvy, pick up that service information in a minute. Some will take time, but.
Right. So it sounds like we're really just moving towards the highest priority is just being the strongest conduit, as you said before, to getting the information.
I think that it's a must.
Okay.
If we want to reduce the number of if we want to quell any potential confusion going forward, we have to be the ones that provide the accurate official information. Drop boxes, early voting sites, polling places, bus routes, opening hours, deadlines, processes, applications, forms. That has to be on us.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this is great. Thank you very much, Boris, for giving that context. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the website? Okay, Boris, what would you like to say about outreach?
So very briefly about outreach. the board has received the report. The report is on the website. This month, we have October, November. We will try to provide this bi-monthly group of events as we go forward. If you look at the calendar, outreach calendar, you'll realize that we are intensifying our engagement with the high schools. This is the first run. We will have a second run in 2024. We are working with our contacts with MCPS. We are reaching out to both MCPS, private and parochial schools, and these events will continue. So there were a couple of events that we cover with our outreach. That information came about those events from the board members. So thank you for that. I hope that some of those events become our annual activity as we go forward. It is, I think that our calendar indicates very well that we are busy when it comes to the outreach. And but yes, so far we managed to cover everything that came our way.
Thank you for that, Boris. Really appreciate it. I had a couple of things I wanted to say about outreach before I open it up to others, and I'll try to be brief. Boris mentioned that there's been a number of board-initiated outreach activities, but I would also add, in almost all of the cases, the staff has joined us and done an outstanding job in doing so. I'm just going to mention a few of them. I had my big moment on September 30th, where Indivisible Montgomery advertised 2 guest speakers. One was Jamie Raskin, and the other was me, and made my kids impressed and my mother proud. It ended up being a discussion about many of the things that we were doing, and I want to thank Daniel for attending. And Gilberto and Greg attended from our staff, and I was also happy to arrange a small birthday celebration for Gilberto, who not only was working on a Saturday, he was working on his birthday at the event, and so we were happy to mark that occasion. Daniel got us invited to a Ugandan Independence Day celebration on October the 7th. Daniel and Kina and I attended. We even met the Ugandan ambassador to the U.S., and we spoke to a number of Ugandan Americans who are very interested in our political process. And I believe that we even got some judge signups out of that event. On October the 8th, this is also on the calendar. I was happy to attend an event where Governor Moore, Congressman Ivey, and Delegate Pena Melnick were speaking to the Women's Democratic Club. The organizers were kind enough at the moment that the room was at its peak attendance to give a public service announcement about the joys of being an election worker and the fact that we were signing up people to be election workers. And we did sign up election workers at that event as well. And then on October the 10th, Ami, Kina, Margie, and I attended an event at Blake High School for we were invited by government teacher Dustin Jeter in order to talk about the joys of getting involved in the political system. And it ended up that we ended up talking not only about the joys of being an election worker, but also the joys of being a political campaign worker. And we were happy to have a bipartisan delegation. And also, Gilberto and Greg were there very cleverly signing up people at the moment that classes were let out and before we started. So there was a huge crowd at their table. And then Gilberto also spoke to the group about future vote. So I want to give a thank you to Gilberto and Greg for attending all of the events that I just described. I think Gilberto went to one without Greg, and Greg went to one without Gilberto, and otherwise it was the two of them. We are recruiting election workers everywhere, and obviously also encouraging people to register to vote. And I'm just very proud of what we're all doing together. Is there anything else that someone wants to say about outreach? Daniel, you had your hand up before. Please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, I just wanted to recognize Boris for the flexibility, especially with some of these requests that are coming in. And even though sometimes we tend to set the expectation that is a short notice that is given, but you help us way exceed our expectation when these community members come back and say, oh yeah, I heard from, Dr. Zelaya, and they said, yes, they'll be here. I'm like, whoa, right? So that's the experience that when we start to create in the community, we change the perspective of many to say, hey, not only, it's fun to be part of the Board of Elections, but also it's fun to be, a judge when it comes to elections. So I want to thank you, Boris, but again, thank the entire staff. I know it doesn't take only you, but it takes, as I say, Dr. Z and many of you to help create that experience for many community members who so far have reached out and we have showed up for them. So thank you.
Can I just add, let me just add to one thing that Daniel said, which is that I want to emphasize the fact that we are frequently getting these requests at a rather late stage. And we are quickly turning them over to Boris, and usually within less than a day, we get confirmation that we will be there. That is a very impressive thing. We know that it is challenging. We know that it is not something that is automatic, and we certainly want to encourage community groups to give us a little more notice about your events before we come. But in the meantime, we are going to do whatever we can to be there. The staff is going to do whatever it can to be there, and we really appreciate that.
If I may just say that I appreciate nice work, but nice words, but Gilberto, Greg, Julia, Aisha, these are the people who hit those events on the weekends. And I think that if we have internally system in place, if the communication is flowing, we can address many things. I'm pretty sure that sooner or later we will hit a moment where we have overlapping events and in an ability to attend, but let's deal with those when it happens.
That is fine. I mean, that's to be, you have a limited staff. We can talk about whether you need to increase it, but the bottom line is still that the staff is very, very responsive. And I would say, Boris, that yes, your staff gets a lot of credit, but all we do is we tell you. So you are still an important part of this process because you're helping to make it happen, and we appreciate that.
I appreciate that, and I really appreciated the public call for a bit more of advance notice that you are sending from this meeting to everyone who is listening. I think it would not help staff only. I think it will make a board member's life and calendar much lighter. So if we can get those advance notices a bit earlier, it would help everyone.
Absolutely, that would definitely be the case. Of course, we all know that we've also told the public that we'd like them to vote earlier, and we have limited success in all of that. But we will do our best to try to get people to give us as much advance notice as possible. We will try to be there with whatever notice we get, but we certainly would do better if we have greater notice.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on outreach? Okay, we're then on to new business. Boris, you wanted to talk about election workers' stipends.
Yes, this is kind of a bit of apologizing on my own behalf and the staff. Earlier this year, when we proposed new pay scales for all the election workers and all positions that we will have in the 2024 cycle, there was an omission on our end because we didn't include the greeters position on that listing, and that we are trying to correct today by presenting that position to the board. As with other positions, we are offering full day and a half day positions for interested volunteers to sign up. The pay is follows the logic that was applied to other positions. We follow the legal requirement of the floor of $250 per day plus $50 for a training. When it comes to greeters, we have a limited number of openings for this position, but as we move forward, we would like maybe to expand and rely more on them at certain locations than the others. Greeters are always essential at the polling places that serve both as early voting sites and on election day, trying to educate people as they stay in line that if they are not scheduled to vote election day, that polling place, they will end up voting provisional. So, and any location change, we would like to have greeters to be able to direct voters to their proper location. So, nothing new, just another position that we should have included in the first huge listing that we did. We didn't, so apologies for that. Compensation, as I said, follow the pattern of all others.
So Boris, you need a motion to approve the pay scale for the greeters or to approve the greeters being added to the list? How do we want to phrase that?
I believe that first time you approve the list, the pay scale for the positions available within Montgomery County Board of Elections. So if we can approve it like that, I believe Kevin is right.
Yes, that's correct. Why don't we handle it that way?
So it'd be just a motion to approve the pay scale for the position of greeter.
Correct.
All right, do I hear such a motion?
Diane has her hand up.
Is your
Yeah,
hand up to
and
make a
then-
motion, Diane?
Yeah, no, but first, before we do that,
I'm
don't-
asking for a motion first. I want to put it on the table, then I'll get comments.
okay,
Does someone want to move to approve the pay scale for the position of greeter? Well, no one's moving it.
I
I'll
will
move.
move.
yeah, I'm unclear about what it is. That was just my,
Okay,
I'm
Go ahead,
unclear
Boris.
about what the pay scale is. I heard 250 a day.
250 a day is the minimum pay scale by state law for any election judge.
And a greeter is a judge? I guess they all are. They're election.
They all are,
judges.
absolutely.
I
But
thought
aren't-
that the kids in future vote were greeters.
Aren't some of them future vote students, the
That's
greeters?
what I just,
The future vote students, by definition, do not get paid. Okay,
okay, but
the people who get paid, if a future vote student is a greeter, Boris, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. If a future vote student is a greeter, they get credit. They do not get pay. If anyone else is a greeter who is, who works for us, under the Constitution of the United States, they get paid.
16
And
months.
and under the state law of Maryland, they get paid a minimum of $250 per day. If they work a half day, they might get less, but if they work the whole day, they get at least $250, as is true for every election worker that we employ, some of whom make a lot more because they are in more responsible positions, none of whom make less.
okay. Okay, then I move we approve the pay scale for the greeters, or are we saying for
For the greeters.
the greeters?
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Diane and seconded by Ami. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Okay, now Boris, the next thing on the agenda would be the Dropbox location. Is there a list of the staff proposal?
so. Okay, let me put the presentation. Not a problem. We are putting the presentation up.
So what we're looking for is a motion on either the staff proposal or the staff proposal with any changes that someone wants to propose.
So what we will present today was based on 2022, and the team that I believe we sustained through presenting the early voting sites and election day locations, and I believe that it's on the board to make a motion to adopt and add to the list based on the public comments and proposals that were received.
So do you have a presentation that you'd like to make right now before we have a motion? Is that what you're saying?
It's to the board. I really cannot answer that. If the board wants to see the presentation from the staff, or want to have a motion first?
It's already circulated to this board.
Well, the board has already gotten the presentation.
That's correct.
And I guess my question would be how quickly we can do the presentation, because I know we have board members who, as the hour gets later, they get concerned. So, Diane, are you having a suggestion about whether we're going to hear the presentation?
Okay, not muted. I would prefer the presentation first. Because there are new locations, aren't there?
No.
Did you see Dropbox
No,
or polling
no,
place?
these are drop boxes. There are, I know you missed the polling place discussion. The polling
Okay.
places are
That's-
only, we've already adopted.
No, I'm okay with that. I
Yes,
just, we
the
are now
drop,
talking about,
the staff proposal for drop boxes does not include any new drop boxes.
oh, well.
It is, it is a return to 2022.
Okay, then I'm I'm on board.
And everyone has received that. So it's not like we haven't read the presentation. We are
Right.
just, in the interest of time, we are not having Boris read it to us now when
Yes,
we've already.
thank you. My question asked, answered. I am good to go.
Okay, so I guess then I am going to ask if there is a motion on the drop boxes. Margie, do you have a motion? Do you have
Alex
a motion
has his
on
hand
the
up.
drop boxes?
I have a question, actually. Sorry, and was this only for the existing drop boxes, or if
You
I
can
were,
make whatever motion you'd like. You
okay,
can make a motion for the existing drop boxes. You can add drop boxes. It is up to you as to what your motion says.
okay. Well, can I make a motion, or do I just move?
Just move.
Okay, I move to add 3 additional drop boxes, 1 drop box at each of the Montgomery College campuses, which are Germantown, Rockville, and Tacoma Park. And for the Tacoma Park location, it should be at the south location of the Charlene R. Nunley Student Services Center, specifically because of its ability to serve more students.
So Margie has moved to add to the staff proposal 3 drop boxes, 1 each at Germantown, at the 3 campuses of Montgomery College, Germantown, Rockville, and Tacoma Park, Silver Spring. Is there a second to Margie's motion? Okay, Keena has seconded it. Discussion. Margie, as the mover, you get to give the first discussion if you'd like.
So I think this is a really important thing to have. I mean, the way, as we have heard, that half of the students who attend Montgomery College rely on public transportation, and while and many, at least 20%, I think was the number, have to commute between 2 different campuses. So therefore, I think having drop boxes makes really opens up accessibility to voting, especially to young students, but also just people who are on the campus. Therefore, I think it's important that we adopt the 3 additional drop boxes. And that's all I have.
Okay, Ami.
I want to address this as a policy issue. And I'm not taking a position on those particular drop boxes or on our adding drop boxes in response to a request. But I think we need to think about what precedent this will set. And I think we need to think about whether we will respond to all requests or some requests or no requests from any particular group that wishes to ask for one. I think we need to decide on an overarching policy before we vote on any individual action.
I will save my comment on that until after Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think we've heard from Montgomery College. They sent, I believe, staff that actually germane to the questions that we ask in terms of, would they be able to meet the requirement? And obviously, there were serious questions that were asked. And based on the discussion, Mr. President, I believe you said that you had made it very clear. And you also reiterate that as well, that we would not consider any dropbacks if there's not a security, if the security is not there, right? That was not, it was not something we would compromise on. And they gave us options, including not only going back to checking with IT, but also that they could download and make those data files available to us. And we were able to clarify that from our amazing attorney, Kevin, who said, yes, there's already a process and policy that others are already doing that meets the law. So based on those issues, I believe that they have met the security requirements, given where who is the director is also looking to go as well, which is to be the one to really not only house but also keep the data file that are provided to him. So I will incline to definitely support the initiative because of, but also it does meet the security requirements that the board needs, or the board needs to have in order for this drop boxes to be located at any site.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to call on Diane, then I'm going to call on myself. Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, great. Thanks. I want to endorse the comments that Ami made. I'd like to reiterate that I think as a policy matter, we really ought to think long and hard about placing drop boxes in locations that have been solicited to us by particular groups, entities, locations. I'm troubled by the fact that a couple months ago, we got a letter asking not only to be made an early voting site, but then, or not, I guess, not only for drop boxes, but to be an early voting site from a particular entity for which everybody knows the demographics, or as in the political makeup of college campuses are heavily skewed in favor of one party. And I don't think anybody can argue with that, but I'm categorically opposed to placing drop boxes, excuse me, on college campuses. And you can hold me to this standard if I were asked my opinion of putting something in a, let's say, Liberty University, which is known for its more conservative nature, if not heavily conservative nature. I'm categorically opposed to that. On principle, I think, in addition to that, I'm on record as being very concerned about the security of the drop boxes in Montgomery County, not because of the goodwill of our board, of our entire organization, of the public at large, but I think security cameras that are not being monitored in live time, and the questions that I've had doesn't sound like they can be. And I know we don't want to discuss the security matters, but just as a general matter, I don't believe the security measures and surveillance are at all adequate. And I'm particularly troubled by putting them on college campuses. And I'll just reiterate again, I think as a policy matter, I do not endorse placing drop boxes when a group comes to us specifically to ask for them.
Okay, I have a question for you, Diane.
Yes, sir.
Did you vote in favor of the Dropbox for Leisure World? Did you vote in favor of the Dropbox for Friendship Heights Senior Center? Did you vote in favor of the Dropbox for Asbury? I'm pretty sure you did.
Are those?
Those are all senior locations that asked us for Dropboxes. And the idea that Montgomery College is a group asking us for Dropboxes. I'm sorry, Ami and Diane, but I think you should rethink how you're framing this question. This is the community college of Montgomery County. Okay, this is literally a public entity designed to serve Montgomery County residents. It is not a private institution. Asbury is a private institution. Leisure World is a private institution. Riderwood is a private institution. We said yes to all of them. And we've said, you know, we put, as I pointed out to Kevin, we have a Dropbox at a Clarksburg elementary school in order to try to address the need for Dropboxes in the up county. No one at that time, this was in 2020, no one at that time said, oh, we're against the Dropbox there because it might skew in favor of a particular political party. So let me remind you of the facts, okay? There are 60% of registered voters who are Democrats and 14% who are Republicans. If we put a Dropbox anywhere in Montgomery County, it will skew towards one party, okay? We are not making decisions based on how it skews. We are making decisions trying to make voting convenient for everyone. We have a Dropbox at the Damascus Recreation Center. We have a Dropbox at the Damascus High School. They are very close to each other, okay? I can try and get you that mileage if that matters to you. We didn't say we're taking out one of those Dropboxes because of how those people vote. We said we want to make it convenient for everybody. That is what we do in Montgomery County. So, yes, let's have a policy. Guess what? We already have a policy. Our policy is that when people come to us and they make reasonable proposals, we consider them. We try to make voting we are very careful about security. We, we try to make voting possible and convenient for every eligible voter, regardless of their demographic, regardless of their political demographic, regardless of whether they come to us or we go to them. In this instance, let me just remind you, it wasn't the students who came to us. It was the president of Montgomery College who came to us. Okay. So we basically had a fellow agency come to us. We didn't, that's not a group. That is a fellow agency. One that I might add, we have a very strong relationship with. We use their facility for our stuff, you know, on a regular basis. Okay. So it is, you know, and they have, you know, it is not unreasonable for us to consider what they have to say and to take action on it. Now, let me just talk very briefly about the process that we have for making sure that they meet all the requirements. Kevin said to us today, and he said it to us before, that we want to have a documentation that everyone who has a Dropbox, and that's everyone who has a Dropbox, whether it's Leisure World, Asbury, Friendship Heights, Riderwood, or Montgomery College, that they all follow the same rules. They all have to have video surveillance 24/7. They all have to have the ability to retain the records. That's a federal law requirement that Kevin is very astutely paying attention to. The state law does not require that level of retention. But we are making sure, we meaning all of us, not just any particular group, our staff, our lawyer, et cetera, we are all making sure that those requirements are complied with. I guarantee you that if any of those places that we vote to put Dropboxes does not meet those requirements, Boris is going to come back to us and he's going to say, I'm sorry, but this place does not meet that requirement. So we are in very good hands in terms of making sure that all of the i's are dotted and t's are
Mark,
crossed.
pull over and let me finish this, please.
So, Ami, you are not on mute, just to let you know. And Kina has her hand up before you, but let me just finish by saying that I have had a lifetime of experience of young people's wishes being pushed to the side. And going back to when I was a young person, I am no longer in that category, but believe me, I remember. And in this instance, we have a population that is doing their best to get educated, to get jobs. Sometimes they're working 2 jobs and getting educated. They are going to school. They are using public transportation. Literally 2/3 of them are using public transportation, and only 40% even have parking permits at Montgomery College. So they are going the extra mile, so to speak, in order to get their education. And it is not so easy for them to just go to the next place to use the Dropbox. So I think it is an entirely reasonable request, and I think it is completely consistent with what we've done in the past. When we were when we had a Republican majority, we added drop boxes in all those senior locations. I made the motion. Okay. I made the motion for those places. I didn't ask how they voted. I mean, believe me, I have some sense as to how they vote in each of those places. Each one is different, but I didn't ask that question. And I would encourage all of my colleagues in voting on this particular request not to look at who they're going to vote for, not to assume who they're going to vote for, but to look at trying to make voting reasonably available to every eligible person in Montgomery County. Thank you. Kina.
I'll just follow up on that.
No, Diane, you will be after Kina and Ami. Kina.
Thank you, Mr. President. So my quick question is, Ame, you addressed the concern that by having these drop boxes for Montgomery College, that there may be a precedence that we're setting up. And in doing so, I think, David, you kind of already shared this, and Diane as well, that there have been drop boxes placed in certain parts of Montgomery County. Up until recently, I had learned that most of these decisions are really based off of population density. That being said, Ami, I'd like to make sure I fully understand from you, what is the precedence that you have concerns or you believe may come of the decision today?
Can I answer that, David?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, no, my point was, and I did not know the history, and you've been on the board a lot longer than I have. I did not realize that there had been requests from Leisure World or Asbury. If our policy is to respond to requests in a manner such that we provide them better access, I'm fine with that as a policy. I just wanted to ensure that this was looked at as a policy issue, not just a case of Montgomery College.
Thank you for that, Ami. I guess, practice becomes policy, after you've done it like 2 times, right? But whatever the case, I don't know that we ever officially said, if someone comes to us, we will do it. I think we pretty much have as a standard board policy through many presidents of the board, if people come to us, we will listen and we will, respond accordingly. Any event, back to you, Kina, your hand is still up.
Yes, thank you. And Kevin and Boris, this may be more addressed to you. As I mentioned before, my understanding or what I have researched so far is that the permitting these drop boxes is primarily due to population density. Is that correct? And if that's the case, are there any considerations made for political minority areas?
You want to start off, Boris?
Yes. So if I may just very briefly make a reference to the to Comar and the regulations that we have to follow, or the board, they are presented to the board. The one is accessibility of the ballot drop boxes to historically disenfranchised communities, including voters with disabilities, cultural groups, ethnic groups, and minority groups. The second point is proximity of the ballot drop boxes to dense concentrations of voters. And then accessibility of the ballot drop boxes to public transport. Ensuring equitable distribution of ballot drop boxes throughout the county. Maximizing voter participation, including through the use of community centers and public gathering places. So I believe that there are different interpretations of this list. I believe that looking at the concentration of water as a residence is not the only parameter that could guide anything on this. People do drop their ballots where they live, their vote mail-in ballots in the drop box where they live, where they work, where they do grocery shopping, where they study, where they drop kids to school. We do not have data that will provide a segmented approach and say, this is the population that votes, utilize the drop box in the neighborhood. This is the one that prefers one on the way to the Giant or whatever other grocery store. High schools are popular because parents drop their kids in the morning and drop the ballot at the same time. It's very, there is no, in my view, there is no linear correlation there, because we all live busy lives and convenience becomes an issue for everyone. And again, convenience for someone is the neighborhood, for another person is the grocery store, for third person is the school. So it is one of those things that board doesn't have a like black and white chips to flip. It is more comprehensive view on the overall approach. But I believe the criteria encompass everything here.
Boris and Kevin, a question for you. Have we ever turned down a request for a Dropbox?
I don't recall.
No. We have not.
Chris, do you remember?
No,
We haven't. Sorry,
No,
I
okay.
haven't. Chris says no.
Yeah, I cannot recall of an occasion where we've turned down a request.
Okay. Diane?
Okay, then I'm fine with that as a policy.
Diane, did you want to speak?
Yeah, we'll just add that in response to the argument that we don't turn it down to different groups, we don't look at the political, I don't think anybody can disagree that there is something unique and different about college campuses.
I do.
And I'm not going to enumerate what those are. You all know what's going on in the news, you know, contemporary events. We also know historically college campuses can be, I'm not saying these are, but I am establishing a principle that I'm going to stay true to. College campuses have historically been hotbeds of unrest. If there are areas that will be more active due to current events, these happen on college campuses. I just categorically oppose putting a voting drop box on a college campus. I don't care what the makeup is. I don't care what the political affiliation more heavily of the student body is. That's a standard that I will stay true to. And for that reason, I will oppose the addition of these three locations.
Well, Diane, you certainly can and have told us your thoughts and can vote based on that. I disagree with the idea that we all know what it means, whatever that means, to put drop boxes on community college campuses, or I don't know whether there are drop boxes on the University of Maryland campus. I don't know. I will say this, I think you are underestimating the troublemaking ability of our older residents of Montgomery County. I've certainly seen it in lots of places. I'm not sure if whether the hotbed of activity is more likely to be Leisure World or Montgomery College. I suspect it's Leisure World.
Okay, point taken.
But having, I've spent much more time at Leisure World than I've spent at Montgomery College. But I will say that college students are busy going to school, but I don't accept the idea that we all know what happens on college campuses. I mean, lots of things happen at college campuses, and none of them, as far as I'm concerned, are relevant to whether we should have drop boxes there. I will also say yet again, there is no requirement in law for the kind of real-time observation of drop boxes that Diane has asked about. She certainly is entitled to think that that is the standard that she wants to uphold, but the law does not require that. Montgomery College is going far beyond what the law requires, and I suspect that the security of those drop boxes will be at least as good as any other drop box we have. That would be my assessment of the situation.
Okay, and I just want to add, this is not a personal indictment of college students in any way, shape, or form. We all have been one. My kids recently were. This is why certain laws are passed, because you have to establish a broad principle. And this is the last I'll say, that I will be outvoted, but this is just my broad principle. And thank you for letting me articulate it.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Alex.
Mr. President, I'll try to be brief. I do join Diane in opposing this. I think that it will be setting a precedent to establish a drop box for a demographic that is more narrowly and tightly defined. There were reasons to establish drop boxes, legitimate ones at the senior centers because of age and infirmity, difficulty getting around. And I dare say, I think that whatever the leanings are at Leisure World, I don't know that anyone can reliably say they go one way or another. But I think, the political leanings of the college campuses are much more in favor of one of the major political parties. And I think that the president, her letter to us says that the purpose here is to drive turnout. Now, in her earlier letter, she said that they had 58% turnout on average among Montgomery College students, which actually seems quite remarkable. But there are many other people who have two jobs, who rely on public transportation. I rely on public transportation to get into town. But we haven't provided, a drop box that's specifically targeted at one person's workplace, unless perhaps they're a school teacher or something like that. But the reason we have them at the schools is because those are polling places. People know where they are. They're generally accessible to the public. There won't be members of the other voting public who would be going to Montgomery College to drop off their ballots.
Yes, there will.
So I think there is some legitimate concern here. And the question is, where would we draw the line? If anyone asked for a drop box, would we say yes? And how many would be too much?
Well, from my perspective, Alex, we will address each request as we get it. So far, when we've gotten requests, we have responded. I do not accept the idea that the demographic at Montgomery College is narrower. In fact, the age range at Montgomery College is very broad.
Do you know what the average?
I can get that for you. What the average age is. I believe that the average age is upper 20s, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I can get that for you. But I will say that I don't know whether you have the same transportation limitations as Montgomery College students do. I don't see any problem with anyone in Montgomery County. I mean, saying that they want to drive turnout in their in their local area. I'm quite sure that Leisure World and Riderwood and Asbury and Friendship Heights wanted to drive turnout there as well. And in many cases, they did. I don't know, Alex, if you were on the board at that particular moment, but Leisure World originally had one of those little drop boxes. And then they came and complained to us because it was overstuffed. And then, sure enough, they are now among the highest producing drop boxes in Montgomery County, according to the data that Boris gave us. So, yes, driving turnout. I mean, I thought we were all driving turnout. I thought that's part of what we were all doing. I mean, I thought that when Ami was talking about doing outreach to the Republican women's clubs, that's in part to drive turnout. It's also to drive election workers. But,
Subject different. It's about educating people about how the voting systems work. But I think the government should be neutral on turnout, frankly. It's to demographic groups. Driving turnout should be the responsibility of political parties, nonprofits, other private citizens, because the government has a vested interest in who turns out.
I agree with that completely.
I respect your all's views, but I will say that when you all were in the majority, certainly we did plenty of driving of turnout. When we were on this board, and part of that is caused by state law, and part of that is caused by this board. Usually, what we figure is that we drive turnout among everyone, and the chips fall where they may. That's the way I view it. I realize that not everyone views it the same way. Apparently, the state of Maryland, has made clear what its views are about drop boxes. So anyway, Kina, I want to wrap this up soon, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my colleagues for sharing their concerns about dissent. Something I want to keep in mind that I too was reminded of fairly recently is that voting is a learned habit. It is not something typically that comes as an adult. All things being fair, I understand, Diane and Alex, and I believe Ami as well, the concerns that you've shared about the locations of these drop boxes. But to David's point, or to our president's point, this is about the voter turnout. And respectfully, Alex, I do disagree in that turnout should be something that it is nonpartisan. It should be something that lives in the hands of the political party. If we are in a position that we are in, it's the accessibility of people sharing their votes, sharing their voice, no matter the political party. I'm very proud of that portion of my role and all of our collective roles on the board. So that being said, having a drop box in a place that more or less caters not necessarily to a certain political ideology, but more particular to maybe an age, I think is really important. We want to help build the habits of voting, whether it is in person or by Dropbox. And I welcome any conversations I could have with both of you, all three of you, to make sure that we are considering either policies or precedents going forward. But with consideration to what has already happened in the past, I think we are in a pretty good position to move forward with this motion, knowing that we will be partners in making sure that we are steadfast in the fidelity of this process going forward. Thank you to all of you and the conversations that you've contributed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up, so let's move to a vote on Margie's motion. All those in favor of Margie's motion, please raise your hand. Okay, I count 4. All those opposed? Okay, it passes by a vote of 4-1 with Ami, Daniel, Kina, and I in the majority, Diane in the minority. Could I now get a motion on the remaining drop boxes other than the 3? Can I get a motion to
David, I thought the motion covered all of them.
It did. It did.
Margie did not utter those words.
She did.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
She did.
Okay.
Margie's motion was to add the three Montgomery College.
Right. To add the three, but she did not say and approve the other 50 whatever. That's
was
it.
it.
Okay.
That-
I understood that as an additive to the existing list, but if you want to redo it, sure.
Well, no, I don't want to redo it. I want to do it. We have to approve the existing list.
Okay,
Okay.
then I will so move.
You know, so let me, you know, now let me, you know, ordinarily, if that were done as an amendment, we would vote on the amended motion. But at the moment, I mean, I don't know whether Diane, whether you want to vote against every Dropbox in Montgomery County, or if you just wanted to vote against those three. Let's vote on the 50. Let's vote on the.
Oh,
50
now I have to make
something.
a decision.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, we're going to vote on them separately. We just voted to add three, but Boris, how many are there aside from the Montgomery College drop boxes?
55.
55, including the one in front of our building.
Okay, so I would like to get a motion from someone to approve the 55 drop boxes that were recommended by the staff.
So move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Ami, seconded by Margie to approve the 55 drop boxes recommended by the staff. That would be in addition to the three that we just voted for. All those in favor of the 55, please raise your hand. And there are 4 votes in favor of the 55.
Wait, I'm still thinking. Honest to God.
I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds to think.
Right. How about I'll just abstain.
Okay, all those
Abstain, go
opposed?
ahead.
All those abstaining? Diane,
Oh,
you're abstaining?
I'll abstain because I don't want to hold you guys up.
Okay, so 4-0 with 1 abstention. We've approved the other 55 drop boxes. So we now have a total of 58 that, and obviously if there are issues associated with any of those drop boxes, any of the 58, Boris, we expect to hear back from you promptly when that happens, before it's, you know, before it's a final fait accompli.
Can I say something really fast? I want to explain my abstention. I want to stay consistent. I can't for the life of me remember what I did a couple of years ago, the last time we voted on these.
I'll probably have to start sending you minutes, Diane,
So
of what you've done.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay.
But Mr. Dillon, surely you don't want Mr. Naaman to be the one to remind you of what you did.
I know, but I know he would tell me the truth.
But I will be happy. I will always tell you the truth,
Yes.
Diane, and I will
Yes.
always be happy to remind you of what you've done in the past
Yes.
when it favors my position.
Yes, you've been good. David's been really good. And I just don't want to diss myself today by.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let's move on because we still we're not quite done yet. Future actions from today's board meeting. Boris, what do you got?
I might be wrong and I ask for help. I recorded that we need to go back to the postmasters, try to inquire more about these 2 ballots, untimely ballots that were rejected by the board of canvassers today. And Daniel, more on BMDs and the blank ballots issue that you raised.
And then, you were also going to inquire about changing the system that calls them blank votes, and seeing whether they can be called blank cards or something.
Or blank pages.
Yes, something that indicates
like
that they're not just, that they're not completely blank. Were there any other follow-ups aside from, obviously Boris is supposed to follow up on making sure that all of the drop boxes comply with the Dropbox limits?
That's given.
That's a given. Anything else as follow-ups?
I don't think there were any other actions.
Okay, lucky for Boris.
Thank you.
And the staff that are, we spent a lot of time talking, but not so much time telling you things to do. So that's probably good news for you. Okay, so we have two sets of minutes. I don't know whether everyone has had a chance to read them and whether whether there's any controversy associated with them. What I'd like to do is just to ask if there's a motion to approve both sets of minutes as they were amended by my emails to you with edits to the minutes.
I will so move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so let's just to be clear, we're talking about both the July minutes and the September minutes. We're doing it as a group. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please raise your hand.
What?
Both of them, September and
What floor is the event?
and July. Okay. Okay, so that is approved unanimously. Now I have a question for the board, which is, Ami, are you about to turn into a pumpkin?
I'm about to turn into a pumpkin.
So the question,
and it is the right time of year for that.
It is the right time of year for that. My question for the board is, we're scheduled to have an executive session. We obviously are going to be missing Ami. I don't know about the rest of you. I don't think we can wait necessarily until our November meeting for that executive session. But would you prefer to meet after this meeting, or would you prefer for us to find another time for all of us to meet in executive session?
I prefer today.
Okay, then you guys go ahead without me, but I have to leave at this point.
Anyone else want to express an opinion? Is anybody not available today to continue this conversation in executive session? I shouldn't say continue.
Depends on how long it will take as to how much trouble I'll be in. So
we'll write you a note, Alex. We will definitely write you a note. Okay, so it sounds like, I mean, I'm not hearing any objection to having executive session today, so we will adjourn this meeting. Kevin informs me that we do not have to have a vote to go into executive session. Is that correct, Kevin?
No, you do. You need to have a motion and a second to go into executive session to obtain legal advice.
Okay.
Ami's hand is up. I don't know, does that?
I think Ami's hand was up because she was voting from before.
Okay.
No, I can stay on for a few more minutes if it's going to be short.
Okay, well, this is going to be very short because we're going to move to go to an executive session and then we're going to have it. So,
okay.
So who would like to move to go into executive session to get legal advice?
I move we go into executive session to receive legal advice.
And okay. I'll second.
Okay, moved by Diane, second by Ami. All those in favor, raise your hand. It is unanimous. Boris.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the board that Ms. Lisa Marino sent an email with a link to the executive session.
Uh-oh.
So,
I don't have that. Okay, because I'm on the road at this point.
So,
Boris, I didn't receive it.
I can text it to you.
I'll go with it. I can go with that.
Well, let me see whether I've received
it.
Okay. Lisa is resending as we.
I can't find it while I'm on the screen.
Even better. Thank you, Lisa, for sending it again.
Yeah.
It was at 4:04 p.m. today.
Oh wow. No, Kevin.
Oh, and it's
it's coming your way, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I got it.
On mine, it looks like it's from Jerry.
Yeah.
So not from Lisa. That would explain why I couldn't find it when I was searching for Lisa.
So do we hang up?
Yes.
Do we hang up?
Yes. We now this meeting is now adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Are we moving immediately or?
Immediately.
Okay.
Immediately. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.